Chapter 2451. A huge, heavenly demonic spider descended into the courtyard. As soon as it appeared, it swallowed 2 martial artists alive. Then it began to release its silk frantically. A huge flower suddenly grew out from the ground. Its petals danced in the air and turned into sharp weapons that hunted the crowd. The most terrifying thing was Lin Ruoxian's attack. Her strength was terrifying. With the help of the array, the huge white snake ran amok in the courtyard. Once someone was hit by the poisonous gas in her mouth, even if they didn't die, they would faint. With the help of the array, the 4 of them worked together. In less than 10 minutes, dozens of sword race martial artists were killed or seriously injured. This was basically the start of the war. However, Ling Xiao didn't care, because he came here today to start the war. In order to save Ling Jiaojiao, he didn't hesitate to sacrifice himself with the sword race. Of course, no one liked to die. Therefore, Ling Xiao formulated a plan. Once it succeeded, they could escape and leave this damned 8 immortal city. It wouldn't be too late to come back for revenge in the future when their cultivation was stronger. So far, the plan had been carried out perfectly according to his expectations. Ling Xiao, if you have the ability, then fight with me. If I win, you'll be at the mercy of the sword race. If I lose, you can take your sister away. Our sword race won't stop you. Jian Lufeng suddenly looked at Ling Xiao and said, this was because he realized that he had been underestimating this ant-like existence all this time. If the situation continued to develop, even if they killed Ling Xiao in the end, most of the sword race's martial artists would die. With the sword race's decline, the other families would definitely take advantage of it. This kind of thing had happened before. One had to know that the 8 great families of the 8 Immortals Mountain hadn't always been the same. In fact, other than the moon race, there had been changes in the other families. The moon race was the oldest family. Although it wasn't the strongest now, very few people dared to touch them because they had a mysterious power. Once they decided to sacrifice themselves, they could directly raise the entire 8 Immortals Mountain. No one was willing to see such an outcome. Therefore, the moon race had always been neutral. They didn't provoke or offend anyone. Others did not dare to provoke them for fear of harming the innocent. In the past, the changes in the other 7 great clans were all due to the mistakes of the previous clans, which led to the sharp decline of the clan's power, and then they were replaced. The sword race didn't want that. If they really suffered heavy casualties in the end, then the other families would definitely devour them like ferocious beasts. As for their vacancies, there would naturally be other clans to fill in. In any case, there were many clans waiting to replace the sword race in the 8 Immortal Mountain. Therefore, Jian Lufeng decided to fight with Ling Xiao. This way, he would be able to resolve the problem easily and wouldn't bring any trouble to the sword tribe. Idiot, you're a First Revolution 5th level Hell Martial Artist, while I'm only a First Revolution 3rd level Hell Martial Artist. Do you really think I'll fight you? Ling Xiao scolded Jian Lufeng in disdain. You coward, you don't even dare to fight. What a joke! Jian Lufeng cursed. What a joke! If I really want to fight with you, then there must be something wrong with my brain. Ling Xiao said disdainfully, do you want me to randomly pick a martial artist from your sword race and fight one-on-one? If I win, you'll do as I say? Idiot! You! Jian Liufeng's face turned ashen, but he couldn't refute. This was because he was in the wrong, and his eloquence wasn't as good as Ling Xiao's, so it was inevitable that he would be at a disadvantage. Husband, don't be angry. Since he doesn't dare to fight with you, then let me fight on your behalf. Shazin stood out and said, you're not bad. Your cultivation is close to breaking through to the early 4th level of the Yin-Yang realm. You're stronger than Jianyu and Jianjia. If you also know the slaughtering sword physique, then your strength would probably be comparable to a martial artist at the early 4th level of the Yin-Yang realm. Good, good. I can agree to fight with you. Ling Xiao looked at Shazin and said, but let's be clear. If I kill you, I can take my sister away. Your sword race will seek revenge. After saying this, he looked at Jian Kuan and Jian Ruchao. If the two of them didn't say anything, they would definitely go back on their words. Xian, are you sure you can win? Jian Kuan looked at Sha Xin and asked. An unknown expert had locked on. Ling Zhao's terrifying formation gave Jian Kuan a headache. If Sha Xin could defeat Ling Xiao, it would be a good thing. However, the strength that Ling Xiao displayed earlier was a little worrying. Ling Xiao could defeat Jian Yu and Jianjia so easily. Could he be hiding his strength? Sha Xin smiled and said, Father, have you forgotten that our sand race also has a secret technique? Although I don't have the slaughtering sword physique, I have the sand witcher. He doesn't know this, so I'm 100% sure that I can kill him. It's impossible for me to fail. Sand witcher. Hearing this, Jian Kuan suddenly felt relieved. The sand witcher of the sand race was really terrifying. It was a ferocious beast hidden in the bloodline of the sand race. Once released, even the martial artist couldn't control it. However, its combat power was definitely strong. As long as he could defeat Ling Xiao, he didn't care whether that thing could be controlled or not. He didn't care anyway. All right, Father believes you. If you can kill him, don't let him live. If this brat lives for even a second longer, I'll feel very uncomfortable. Jian Kuan gnashed his teeth and said he naturally hated Ling Xiao to the bone. First, he killed the earth demon assassin that their sword race had painstakingly nurtured. Then he killed his 3 sons. One of them was even his own. The enmity of killing his sons was absolutely irreconcilable. How could he let this Ling Xiao go? He hated that he couldn't skin Ling Xiao and pull out his tendons. However, Ling Xiao was too cunning. For safety's sake, he gave Sha Xin an order to kill if she could. As long as Ling Xiao died, he could whip his corpse in anger. Don't worry, Father. Today is my husband's wedding day. This brat actually dared to cause such a ruckus at the wedding venue. He even insulted our sand race and sword race's martial artists. If I don't kill him, wouldn't I be a sand race woman in vain? A sword race wife in vain? Don't worry, I definitely won't let him live on. An incomparably sinister expression appeared on Sha Xin's originally beautiful face, as if she was a wild beast that went berserk. She walked towards Ling Xiao and stood 50 meters away. She pointed at Ling Xiao and said, Little thief, do you dare to fight with me, Sha Xin? Don't tell me that you're even afraid of women. Since you're seeking death, why should I refuse? It's just that so many people present are listening. Those conditions that you mentioned earlier, the sword race's patriarch, Jian Kuan, has already agreed. Whether or not your sword race is really shameless without a bottom line, I really want to see. Ling Xiao originally didn't want to kill more people, but the sword race wasn't willing to let Ling Jiao go. He could only start a massacre here. Chapter 2452. I hope the sword tribe doesn't go back on their words. Let's begin. Ling Xiao knew very well that even if he relied on the formation, the chances of him saving Ling Jiao were not high. Although there was a possibility that both sides would perish in the end, he didn't want that kind of ending. If there was a simpler and less laborious way to solve this problem, he would of course choose it. After all, defeating Shaheen was much easier than destroying the entire sword tribe. Shaheen's cultivation should be on par with Infeitian, much stronger than Jianyu and Jianjia. Moreover, he believed that Shaheen must have some kind of trump card. Otherwise, she would not be so confident in defeating him after he killed Jianyu and Jinjia. Ling Xiao, be careful. The Sand Tribe Sandwicher is a very terrifying secret technique. Not only can it greatly increase your defense, but it can also greatly increase your attack. Lin Ruoxian suddenly transmitted her voice to Ling Xiao. She knew things that Ling Xiao did not. What's a sandwicher? Ling Xiao asked curiously. It's a bit similar to the Scarlet Demon in Qi Ling Er's body, but Qi Ling Er only sold her soul to the Scarlet Demon, while the Sand Clan signed a contract with the Sandwitcher King, allowing them to raise the Sandwitchers in their bodies. In the case of a partial transformation, they can use the Sandwitcher's power to strengthen themselves. Once the transformation is complete, the powerful sandwicher will completely take over the martial artist's body. At that time, the one fighting with you will not be Shaheen, but the sandwicher. Lin Ruashian explained. No wonder she's so confident. Humph. But she has something to rely on. Do you think I don't? Ling Xiao sneered and said, Sister Ruashian, don't worry. She will definitely lose. You're quite confident. Lin Ruashian shook her head and smiled bitterly. She realized that she did not understand Ling Xiao at all. Even under such circumstances, he was still so confident. Where did Ling Xiao's confidence come from? Lin Ruashian really wanted to find out. Are you ready? Shaheen looked coldly at Ling Xiao and asked indifferently. I've already said it. Let's begin. There's no need to talk nonsense. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He held the heavy sword tightly in his hand. Many cracks had already appeared on the heavy sword. He had snatched this sword from someone else and had used it for a long time. It was time to change it. However, defeating Shaheen should not be a problem. Boom! The violent auras of the two suddenly collided, creating countless vortexes in the void. Things like aura were supposed to be formless and traceless. However, when it was cultivated to a certain level, combined with the battle intent, it could turn one's aura into a truly terrifying existence with lethal power. What a strong fighting spirit! It seems that you are indeed worthy of my full strength. The collision of their auras made Shaheen realize that this guy was definitely hiding his strength. He was not at the middle stage of the third level of hell of the Yin-Yang realm, as everyone knew. However, this was even better. Defeating such an enemy was more valuable. Desert coffin bind. A low voice came out of Shaheen's mouth, and then his hands began to form seals at an extremely high speed. This should be one of the secret techniques of the sand race. The difference between martial techniques and secret techniques was that martial techniques required the execution of moves. Secret techniques required the formation of seals. At that moment, the earth elements between heaven and earth began to gather from all directions. Under the control of Shaheen's powerful sand martial soul, it formed a huge desert coffin. This coffin gradually solidified as if it was made out of hard stones. It felt much more powerful than Jianyu and Jianjia's moves. Boom! The huge coffin suddenly fell from the sky, trying to bind Ling Xiao in the coffin. Boring trick. Ling Xiao sneered disdainfully. He waved the heavy sword in his hand, and a powerful sword chi soared into the sky. The fifth move of the meteor sword technique. Heaven falls and earth rends. Boom! The huge coffin was directly pierced and could no longer trap anyone. Shaheen frowned slightly, but she did not panic because of this. A twisted expression appeared on his ferocious face, and he roared hysterically, "It's useless. The desert coffin is not something you can break so easily." As soon as she finished speaking, the broken coffin began to repair rapidly. A large piece of the ground turned into sand, and Shaheen borrowed it for her use. Not only that, a huge evil spirit shadow appeared on the coffin and wrapped the entire coffin tightly, making the coffin even harder. That must be the shadow of the Sand Witcher. Ling Xiao thought to himself. It was just a shadow and it wanted to trap him. Wasn't that ridiculous? I've said it before. This kind of boring trick really makes me sleepy. Destroy. Meteor Sword Skill's sixth move, Doomsday. This was the sword skill used to kill Jianyu. Although it was a mid-tier jade grade martial technique, its power was extremely powerful. Boom! This time the huge coffin was not pierced but shattered. If Shaheen wanted to reform it again, she would have to spend a lot of energy. What? Damned bastard, take this! Black Sun Sandstorm Fist. Although Shaheen did not think that the desert coffin could completely trap Ling Xiao, but at least it should have some effect. But the reality made her a little annoyed. The desert coffin did not have any effect, and it was shattered by Ling Xiao. Furious, she directly used a high-tier jade grade martial technique. Ling Xiao had seen the Black Sun Sandstorm Fist on the 5th floor of the ghost prison, and it was used by the person called shying. When the terrifying fist skill was used, yellow sand filled the sky, covering the sun. Only a black sun was shining dimly. With the roar of the wind, the fist fiercely blasted towards Ling Xiao. Eastern purple chi sword, one sword to the west. Ling Xiao looked coldly at the shocking fist, and a terrifying purple chi suddenly burst out from his body, soaring into the sky. Then a huge purple sword appeared behind him, thrusting towards the terrifying black sandstorm-like fist. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Sahin's black sun sandstorm fist was much more powerful than Xia Ying's. Ling Xiao's hasty counterattack was naturally not powerful enough. His body was forced to retreat a few steps, but this kind of attack was not enough to injure him. Die for me! Sahin finally got a slight advantage, and naturally wanted to expand this advantage as soon as possible. She absolutely did not want to see Ling Xiao counterattack, so she took the opportunity to throw another punch. Her speed was extremely fast, and although it was slower than Ling Xiao's 1,000-mile wolf travel, it was much faster than the average martial artist of the same level. Another black sun sandstorm fist. It was as if Ling Xiao could see a gigantic black sun crashing down on him. The terrifying sandstorm was like a ferocious beast, and it wanted to swallow Ling Xiao. Faced with this brazen attack, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. The purple chi on his body became more vigorous. Chapter 2453. You want to kill me? It's useless. Eastern purple cloud sword, one sword destruction. An even more powerful giant purple sword flew out from Ling Xiao's heavy sword. In that instant, the power of destruction destroyed the black sandstorm and the black fist. Even the black sun was directly destroyed. It's just a good high-tier jade grade martial skill. How can it be so strong? Of course, Shaheen knew about the Eastern purple cloud sword. It was not as good as her black sun fist. But in Ling Xiao's hands, the power released by the Eastern purple cloud sword was shocking. But at this moment, she did not have time to think. After the terrifying giant purple sword shattered her black sun sandstorm fist, it was still moving forward, trying to pierce through her. Her body was pierced through. Shaheen was shocked. She quickly formed another seal. Her body was quickly wrapped in an eggshell-like protective film. This eggshell-like defense was used by the desert cloud before, but it was obvious that Shaheen's defense was stronger. The terrifying giant purple sword pierced through the eggshell-like defense, and then the terrifying sword chi continued to penetrate. Bang! Like an eggshell-like shattering, the defense that Shaheen was so proud of was shattered, although the giant purple sword was also exhausted and disappeared. But Ling Xiao was already closing in with his sword, attacking at an extremely fast speed. Both of them would not let go of this perfect opportunity to defeat each other. Shaheen's hair was a little messy. Her eyes were filled with hatred and anger. You asked for it, Ling Xiao. Sandwicher, come out. Originally, Shaheen was not willing to use the sandwicher until the very end, because once this move was used, she would most likely lose her own will and become a puppet controlled by the sandwicher. But now she had no choice. The opponent was too strong. She had to go all out. Even if she had to turn into a monster, she had to kill Ling Xiao. Her body began to change rapidly. The first thing that started to change was her right eye. Her right eye emitted a scarlet glow. Zhou Xuanji's eyes, her skin was like sand hardening, becoming extremely strange. Then her right hand turned into a huge claw, which looked like it was made of hardened gravel. Then a long tail appeared behind her, which was also made of sand. Just as this strange transformation took place, Shaheen's elemental energy changed from its previous colorless and transparent state. It was now the same color as sand. Not only that, but its density had also increased by a lot. Shaheen did not let the transformation complete. In the end, she didn't want to lose her consciousness until the very end. Get lost! His right hand transformed into a giant claw and clawed at Ling Xiao. There was no technique involved, but the might of this attack was clearly more terrifying than the Black Sun sandstorm fist from before. Powerful earth energy condensed on this claw, and it was like a mountain pressing down on Ling Xiao. It was extremely terrifying. At this time, Ling Xiao's powerful sword had arrived, and it directly collided with the huge claw. Rumble! The thunderous sound reverberated throughout the courtyard. Many people couldn't help but cover their ears. The sound of an explosion rang out, and both of them were sent flying. However, Sahin only took a step back, and then rushed forward again. Ling Xiao took 7 or 8 steps back, and his body was still leaning backward. Ha ha ha, Ling Xiao, now do you know why I made a bet with you? Because once I release Xiao Witcher, you will die without a doubt. Stupid guy, you actually agreed to the bet. What a joke! Sahin, who was rushing over, let out a wild laugh. It was just that this laughter sounded really strange, and it became sharper and more ear-piercing. Isn't it a bit too early for you to be happy? Ling Xiao blasted his palm behind him, and with the help of the recoil force, he not only stabilized his body in an instant, but also rushed toward Sahin. Sahin attacked. In his body, the violent sword intent began to roar. Although he couldn't easily use the previous slaughter sword intent and destruction sword intent. However, things like sword intent didn't matter because as long as one used a sword, one would have it. The terrifying sword intent condensed on the heavy sword in Ling Xiao's hand. Not only that, Ling Xiao's body began to undergo strange changes. The tyrannical blood demonic dragon martial soul transformation had been executed by him. He displayed it. If the other party could transform, why couldn't he? Except for his right hand, Ling Xiao's entire body seemed to be wearing a set of armor similar to the tyrannical blood demonic dragon. And the moment the transformation was completed, Sahin's claw had already arrived. The huge yellow claw, which was obviously not a human hand, was filled with a powerful aura. It directly slapped toward Ling Xiao's head. If this claw hit, no matter how strong Ling Xiao's defense was, it would be difficult for him to survive. Therefore, Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. For him, an attack was the best defense. Buzz! The huge claw collided with the sharp sword edge. The terrifying sound wave that erupted made everyone seem to have lost their hearing in an instant. Loud silence. What it meant was that the sound was too loud and exceeded the ability to hear, so they couldn't hear it. In the center of the battle, the yellow and blood-red light grew bigger and bigger, turning into an irregular sphere, enveloping both of them. Wrapped in it, the terrifying light sphere continued to expand, and when its diameter reached 100 meters, it finally exploded completely. It seemed that even the air couldn't withstand such a terrifying impact. At that moment, many people saw a strange scene. It seemed that the sky was forcibly distorted. Many unlucky fellows were too close and were directly flung away by this terrifying impact. After the collision, Sahin's claw was directly shattered, and more cracks appeared on Ling Xiao's heavy sword. It looked like it could fall apart at any time. Ah! Sahin burst out with an even more terrifying scream. The originally normal left eye also began to change, until the left half of the body was exactly the same as the right half. Down. At this time, only Sahin's legs still maintained the shape of a human. Her entire upper body had completely transformed into the appearance of the Sand Witcher. The moment the transformation was completed, Sahin once again pounced on Ling Xiao. It was Ling Xiao who made her so embarrassed in front of so many people. She must kill Ling Xiao. Definitely. Kid, let's see what else you can do. Sahin didn't believe that Ling Xiao could still perform any martial arts that could shock her at this point in the battle. Her transformation was close to 90%, and her strength had also increased by nearly 90% at the same time. If this still couldn't defeat Ling Xiao, how could it be possible? The only reason you would say that is because you are too ignorant. Ling Xiao sneered, and his body began to be wrapped in purple-blue lightning. Advanced Thunder Battle Body was instantly released. The heavy sword in his hand was also wrapped in a layer of lightning-like protective film. Chapter 2454. Purple Thunder Aura, one sword to the west. It was the same move, but because of the advanced lightning battle physique, its power was much more powerful. Sehine looked at him in astonishment, but at this time, she didn't have time to think too much. Ling Xiao was just a small character. She didn't even pay attention to him. She didn't know that Ling Xiao had the lightning battle physique. It was inevitable to be careless in this battle. But in Shehine's view, Ling Xiao's lightning battle physique wasn't that strong, so she wasn't afraid at all. Both claws grabbed Ling Xiao at the same time, ignoring the power of Ling Xiao's sword. Bang! Puchi! The sword and the claws clashed. First, an astonishing roar sounded. Then, the sword that was about to fall apart under the amazing power of lightning pierced through the thick claws. It pierced Shehine's throat, but unfortunately, the body made of sand was too hard. When Ling Xiao's sword pierced Shehine's throat, it was already weak and couldn't pierce through her. However, the pain of her hands being pierced still made Sehine scream hysterically. In that instant, her eyes were completely plunged into a pitch-black color. Then, a pair of wings made of sand appeared on its back. Her body also suddenly became a lot bigger. Originally, only her legs and feet were not covered, but now she was completely wrapped in sand. How is this possible? Shehine is actually at a disadvantage. Seeing this scene, Jian Kuin's firm confidence suddenly wavered. Big brother, don't worry. Even if Shehine is defeated, I won't let that Ling Xiao go. As long as we kill him, no one will dare to gossip outside. Jian Ruchao transmitted his voice to Jian Kuin. He was more ruthless than Jian Kuin, because he knew that once Ling Xiao escaped, it would be like a hidden dragon entering the sea, a tiger returning to the mountain. Soon, he will inevitably become a big problem for the sword race. I didn't expect Boss to be more terrifying than we thought. Shehine is almost completely under the Sand Witcher's control, yet he still has the upper hand. Lin Yang did not expect Ling Xiao to be so much stronger than he had imagined. This was far beyond his expectations. The Qingwan flowers were also in a daze. She had originally thought that Ling Xiao's aptitude might be second only to Ling Yan's, but now it seemed that Ling Xiao's aptitude was not inferior to Ling Yan's at all. TSK, the Dark Tribe has really taken in a good disciple. If they train him well, he'll be extremely strong in a year or two. He'll be the only one who can compete with Lin Yutian in the 8 Immortal Mountain. That's right, to be able to suppress the demonized Sand Hunter with this level of cultivation. Sigh, what a pity. Why isn't he a disciple of our Zhen family? In fact, even Nightwalker felt that Ling Xiao was a talent with great potential. Unfortunately, his son and Fei Tian had a grudge against Ling Xiao. Later on, and Fei Tian had tried to deal with Ling Xiao many times. It seemed that this grudge could not be resolved. He and Nightwalker looked at each other. Then the two of them communicated secretly. Brother, it seems that we can't let Ling Xiao go back alive today. Let's kill him in the Sword Tribe and blame it on the Sword Tribe. Nightwalker suggested. Good idea, but be careful when you do it. Don't be discovered. Otherwise, it will lead to a serious crisis within the Dark Tribe. At the same time, it will lead to a life and death battle between the Dark Tribe and the Sword Tribe. That's not good. Nightwalker said cautiously. Brother, don't worry. My martial soul is perfect for sneak attacks. Nightwalker sneered, as if he had a card up his sleeve. He looked at Ling Xiao as if he was looking at a corpse. Ah! In the air, Sha Xin completely sealed her consciousness out of fear. She gave her body to the Sand Hunter to control. She could not afford to lose. She could not lose either. The shock that Ling Xiao gave her was too terrifying. Only by giving herself to the Sand Hunter could she defeat Ling Xiao. Not good. That guy has completely lost consciousness. She gave her body to the Sand Hunter. This time, Ling Xiao is in trouble. Sigh, this kind of fighting method is simply shameless. but there was nothing one could do about it. After all, the Sand Hunter was a terrifying existence that had been raised in the body of a direct descendant of the Sand Tribe. At a critical moment, it was not wrong for them to use it in battle. Therefore, even if they sympathized with Ling Xiao, they could only watch as Ling Xiao was killed today. Is this the complete form of the Sand Hunter? It's really big. Looking at the huge monster that was more than 10 meters tall and had a wingspan of more than 10 meters, Ling Xiao also sighed. What kind of monster was the Sand Hunter? At this moment, the Sand Hunter only needed to blow a breath to create a sandstorm. It looked like the end of the world and was extremely terrifying. Looks like I have to get serious. This guy is being controlled by the Sand Hunter. I'm afraid his strength has already reached the early stage of the 4th level of hell. No, he should be even stronger. After all, the Sand Hunter's defense and attack are much scarier than a warrior of this level. Even the Yin-Yang Yuan force in his body is much stronger. Ling Xiao frowned as his body started to change. The tyrant blood demon dragon martial soul was disintegrated and replaced by the Black Wolf general martial soul. Because under the Black Wolf general martial soul, his 1,000-mile wolf travel could be unleashed to the extreme. To deal with this big guy, using his movement technique was the best choice. Other than that, there was no other way, unless he used the Butterfly Lady's power or the Divine Grimoire's power. But right now, there was no need for that. It was time for him to fully unleash his cultivation. He had been suppressing it because the opponent was not worthy of him using his full strength. Now he could finally unleash the full power of his peak Yin-Yang Realm 3rd level cultivation, relying on the accumulation of more energy than others in every realm. He would not be afraid even if he faced a Yin-Yang Realm martial artist who was at the early stage of the 4th level of hell. Ha ha ha, Dai. Although I don't know who you are, if you hurt my host, you must die. The Sand Hunter's voice was old and hoarse. Every sound was like a muffled thunder. Although his attack was still the Black Sun Sandstorm Fist, its power was many times stronger than when Shahin used it. The huge Black Sun was like a ferocious monster that wanted to devour Ling Xiao. Die, you little kid. You can't continue to live. At that moment, the terrifying Black Sun turned into a huge fist and blasted towards Ling Xiao. Lin Ruoxian and the others' hearts jumped to their throats. Jian Kuin, Jian Ruchao, and the others revealed cold smiles. It was as if they could already see Ling Xiao dying on the spot. But at this moment, Ling Xiao did not seem to see Shahin's attack at all. He was completely immersed in the sword in his hand. Chapter 2455. Ling Xiao's heart was completely immersed in the heavy sword in his hand. His sword intent was infused into it as he prepared for a powerful move. In his eyes, the giant in front of him was not an invincible monster. It was just a rock that must be shattered. Only an extremely sharp sword intent could destroy it. Ling Xiao's sword intent continued to rise and strengthen. As his sword intent continued to be released and his cultivation continued to explode, Ling Xiao became a force to be reckoned with in everyone's eyes. Many people did not even dare to look at Ling Xiao, because when they looked at Ling Xiao, it was as if their bodies were being sliced by something. That was the immense pressure caused by the sword intent. It's time to end this, woman. Thunder lava, heaven and earth purple aura, one sword destruction, massacre. In this attack, Ling Xiao secretly infused his powerful destruction and massacre sword intents. He believed that with such a powerful sword aura, very few people would notice what was so special about this sword intent. After all, the destruction and massacre sword intents were not unique to Ling Xiao. Anyone could cultivate them. It was just that there would be a difference in the realm. Heaven and earth shattered. Ling Xiao stabbed out with his sword. No one could describe how terrifying this sword was. At least, no one present could describe it. When this sword stabbed out, the surrounding air seemed to have been emptied. That space became a terrifying whirlpool. In an instant, the space where the Sandwitcher was began to distort, deform, and collapse. Not good, Xan'er is in danger. Saren from the Sand Clan saw this scene. Although Shaheen was married to the Sword Clan, she was still a member of the Sand Clan and his daughter. How could he not save her? Unfortunately, even with his speed, he could not compare to the terrifying speed of this sword light. The only thing he could do was scream. As for the Sandwitcher, it was impossible for him to block the attack. After all, the Sandwitcher was in the middle of an attack. If he turned around to defend, it would definitely waste a lot of time. Crack! Like glass shattering. The space where the Sandwitcher was shattered, including the Sandwitcher. It shattered into pieces and scattered on the ground. The might of this sword strike was so powerful that it shocked everyone. It should be noted that this was the sword chi released by a martial artist at the peak of the 3rd level of hell in Yin-Yang realm. The moment her body disintegrated, Shaheen's hatred soared to the sky. Losing to Ling Xiao not only meant that she was going to die, it also meant that she had embarrassed her husband. Even if she died, it would be a humiliation, a failure. She would forever be nailed to the cross of a loser and become a complete piece of trash. She hated it so much. How hateful. So what if you hate me? It's all over now. Ling Xiao looked at Shaheen with disdain. Looking at the heavy sword in his hand that finally cracked due to the powerful force, he sighed. Although he had killed Shaheen, the sword was also broken. It was time to find another weapon to replace it. The sword race's treasure should be a sword. I have to find a chance to get it. How can this guy be so strong? It seems like there will be a good show to watch in the Dark Tribe's battle for the Dark Shadow Gourd. I thought that in Fei Tian would definitely win. But now it seems like this guy will be in Fei Tian's strongest opponent. Yeah, how many years has it been? Other than that person and the young sect master, this guy is the 3rd person I've seen who has the potential to surpass all others. As long as he survives, his future will be limitless. Many people looked at Ling Xiao with envy. To be able to accept such a genius as a disciple would be a great blessing in life. Bastard! At this moment, Jian Liufeng's eyes turned red. It was a pair of eyes that were red with anger. The one who died was his wife. He didn't care about the stupid bet. He only knew that Ling Xiao killed his wife, so Ling Xiao must die. Whoosh! Jian Lufeng turned into a sword light and instantly approached Ling Xiao. A terrifying killing intent spread across the entire area. This made those who had yet to recover from the shock of Shaheen's death unable to react. Bastard! How dare you kill my wife? I'll let you die here. Jian Lufeng, you're shameless. When Lin Ruoxian saw Jian Liufeng's attack, he knew that he had to stop this guy. Jian Lufeng was not like those who had been killed before. His strength was definitely not something that Ling Xiao could handle. Although Jian Lufeng was shameless and treacherous, this was not the time to be reasonable. He had to stop this guy. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would be dead. Her movements were extremely fast. The moment Jian Lufeng made his move, she had already rushed towards Ling Xiao. Her body was like a shadow, and her speed was extremely fast. Stop her! At this moment, more experts from the sword race attacked. They stopped Lin Ruoxian. Even if Lin Ruoxian killed 2 of them, there were still dozens of them left. They would not give Lin Ruoxian the chance to save Ling Xiao. As long as Ling Xiao was dead, their deaths would be worth it. After all, to the sword race, killing Ling Xiao was the only way to wash away their shame. Attack! Although Qing Wanhua and Lin Yang were not too strong, with Ling Xiao's array, they could still fight against many experts from the sword race. Since they could not save Ling Xiao, the only thing they could do was to help Lin Ruoxian get rid of those experts. Then they would let Lin Ruoxian save Ling Xiao. They could only hope that Ling Xiao could hold on and not get killed. That would be enough. In an instant, the sword race compound was in chaos. Killing intent filled the air and roars could be heard. Those who were watching quietly crept out of the array, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Only Hidden Flower stared coldly at Ling Xiao, thinking about when to launch a sneak attack. Don't attack yet, since Jian Lufeng has already attacked. Ling Xiao probably won't be able to survive. Nightwalker reminded Hidden Flower. If the sword race could kill Ling Xiao, then there was no need for them to get involved. Otherwise, if they were discovered, it would be difficult to explain themselves. As one of the top geniuses in the sword race, Jian Lufeng was on par with a Ming from the dark race. Only Ling Xiao, who was facing Jian Lufeng, knew how terrifying Jian Liufeng's strength was. While Jian Lufeng was still in midair, the green sword light had already turned into a green dragon and charged towards Ling Xiao. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Ling Xiao. Die, worm! Jian Liufeng's sword technique was very simple. It was straightforward, and there was nothing fancy about it. However, this terrifying power made Ling Xiao feel immense pressure. A beam of green sword light shot out, instantly enlarging and enveloping Ling Xiao's entire body. Jian Lufeng clearly did not want to give Ling Xiao a chance to escape. Ling Xiao was not an idiot. He would not fight head-on with an opponent he could not defeat. He stomped his foot and activated the 1,000-mile wolf travel. His figure began to retreat rapidly. As he retreated, he controlled the array at the same time. Terrifying lightning bolts and violent magma shot towards Jian Lufeng. Chapter 2456. Although Jian Lufeng was much stronger than Ling Xiao was already prepared. If he didn't fight Jian Lufeng head-on, Jian Lufeng wouldn't be able to catch up to him even if he died of exhaustion in the array. Sword tribe members are indeed shameless. You lost the bet, and now you want to settle the score. Do you really think that I, Ling Xiao, am afraid of you? Since you didn't keep your promise, I'll turn the sword tribe into ruins. Ling Xiao was enraged. He wasn't Jian Liufeng's match, but he could still tear down the entire sword tribe. Within the array formation, an enormous divine dragon suddenly scurried out. The divine dragon was covered in flames as it circled around the sword tribe's courtyard. The buildings collapsed one after another, and the sword tribe warriors were killed one after another. Anyway, these warriors wanted to kill him, and none of them were innocent. He wouldn't feel guilty even if he killed them. Stop, otherwise I'll kill her. Suddenly, Jian Kuan, who had been silent all this while, roared. The scene instantly quietened down. Jian Lufeng was stunned. Everyone was stunned. Jian Kuan, the sword tribe leader, actually held a sword to Ling Jiaojiao's neck and used her to threaten Ling Xiao. *CK, how embarrassing. Since when did the sword tribe fall to such a state? Using a girl to threaten a peak stage 3 hell warrior of the Yinyang realm? Everyone was dumbfounded. After all, big families cared about their reputation. Although they would do some dirty things behind their backs, they would at least appear to be gentlemen on the surface. They would definitely not do such dirty things. Yet Jian Kuan did it, because he couldn't think of any other way. Ling Xiao's array was too difficult to deal with. Even Jian Lufeng couldn't take it down in a short period of time. If this dragged on, the sword tribe would be turned into ruins. He definitely wouldn't allow that to happen. Therefore, he could only do this. Even if he had to lose his reputation, he couldn't let Ling Xiao off. Old dog, you've really reached the pinnacle of shamelessness. Ling Xiao frowned as he looked at Jian Kuan and said coldly, It doesn't matter what you say. If you want her to live, then obediently kill yourself. As long as you die, I will let her go. Jian Kuan said loudly, You people from the sword race speak like farts. Do you really think I'll believe you? Ling Xiao said coldly, It doesn't matter if you believe me or not, but if you don't listen to me, she will die. Jian Kuan thought that since he had already done such a shameless thing, he didn't care anymore. Go ahead and kill her. If you kill her, I guarantee that I'll bury everyone from the sword race with her. Ling Xiao looked at Jian Kuan coldly and said, Do you think that just because I have a deep relationship with my sister, I will be so stupid to give up my life? To people like you who don't keep your promises, even if I die, my sister will still fall into the devil's den. Rather than that, why don't we fight to the death and perish together? He just looked at Jian Kuan indifferently. Although he was incomparably nervous, the expression on his face was cold and indifferent. What? Jian Kuan was somewhat at a loss as to what to do by Ling Zhao's attitude. He had seen before many people, after their loved ones were taken as hostages, they would all hesitate to take action. But this Ling Zhao was different. This guy was actually not flustered at all. Furthermore, he actually looked so calm and composed, as if everything was under his control. I'm not joking with you. If you still don't surrender without a fight, I'll really kill her. Jian Kuan's sword blade already touched Ling Zhao's neck. A bloody mark appeared, fresh blood dripping down. Perhaps it was the stimulation of pain. It caused Ling Zhao to actually wake up from her daze. Although she did not understand what happened, the moment Ling Zhao woke up, she guessed a rough idea. Younger brother, don't worry about me. If I die, just take revenge for me will do. She actually ignored the pain on her neck and shouted loudly. Relax, I'll make everyone from the sword race be buried with you, regardless of whether it's the elderly or the children. Not a single one will be left alive. If there was something that could make Ling Zhao turn into an out-and-out devil, it was probably someone daring to harm his loved ones and friends. He had once massacred a sea race tribe because of the death of 2 of his good brothers. Until now, he had never regretted it. Everyone had to bear the consequences of what they did. If someone felt that he was cruel and wanted to kill him, he did not care either. The crux was whether the other party had this strength or not. While talking, the array formation activated once more. A lightning dragon directly bound the 100 over people from the sword race. Although these people's martial strength was low, they were the relatives of the sword race's upper echelons. There were old people above, young children below. Originally, Ling Zhao deliberately avoided these people and did not move during the attack just now. He was not a devil after all, did not want to kill innocent people. But at this moment, when he saw what Jian Kuan did to his elder sister, Ling Zhao, he would rather be a devil. There was no compassion in his heart. How is it, Jian Kuan? How about we attack at the same time and see who will suffer more? Ling Zhao looked at Jian Kuan coldly. There was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. Ling Zhao, are you crazy? Hurry up and release those people. They are innocent. They're just ordinary people. And Yeshing ordered loudly, Lord Patriarch, why are you meddling in other people's business now? When that old dog Jian Kuan took my sister as a hostage, why didn't you even fart? Since you don't dare to fart, then hold it in. Don't be a good person now. Of course, if you want them to live, it's very simple. Ask Jian Kuan to release my sister. Ling Zhao said coldly, You're rebelling. This is a serious crime. And Yeshing said angrily, Serious crime. I know that those who steal a country will be honored and those who steal will be killed. If I only kill one person from the sword race, of course, it will be a serious crime. But if I destroy the entire sword race, then I can form my own race and become one of the 8 great clans to replace the sword race. Speaking of which, other than the moon race, didn't all the 8 great clans come to be like this? Ling Zhao sneered. Actually, everyone knew about this. But the only one who dared to say it out loud was probably Ling Zhao. This guy didn't care about his life. Father, don't bother about him. He wouldn't dare to kill anyone from the sword race. Otherwise, I'll make his life worse than death. I'll make the Ascension town turn into a river of blood. Jian Lufeng said loudly. Is that so? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Among the hundreds of people who were tied up, one of them turned into ashes and died on the spot. Don't blame me. It's Jian Liufeng's fault. Does this arrogant guy really think that he's the ruler? That he can control everything? He looked at Jian Lufeng with a mocking look. Crazy. You're really crazy. Jian Lufeng had not expected Ling Zhao to go to such an extent. Crazy? I'm crazy indeed. Since I can't live, why not go crazy? Ling Zhao said coldly, Jian Kuan, listen up. You only have one hostage. I have hundreds of hostages. Chapter 2457. Stop. I'll give her to you. You have to release all the hostages. Jian Kuan did not dare to gamble with Ling Zhao. Once Ling Jiaojiao died, Ling Xiao would have no restraints. He would really dare to kill everyone. Don't worry, I'm not a shameless person like your sword tribe. I'm a man of my word. Ling Xiao sneered. Of course he would keep his word. He really did not want to kill these old and weak people. All of this was forced by the other party. As long as the other party released Ling Jiaojiao, he would naturally release the hostages. Jian Kuan thought for a while and finally allowed Ling Jiaojiao to walk towards Ling Xiao. Brother, I'm sorry. Ling Jiaojiao was very clear that if she was not trapped, Ling Xiao would definitely not take the risk to barge into the sword tribe and offend so many people. There's nothing to be sorry about. Who asked us to be siblings? Moreover, when Jian Lufeng wanted to take you away, I did not object. Speaking of which, I'm also responsible for this matter. It's good that you're fine now. Ling Xiao gently grabbed Ling Jiaojiao's hand and said, Hide in the beast ring first. Since I've saved you, we should leave. After he finished speaking, he released all the sword race hostages. Jian Kuan immediately sent experts to protect those hostages, not giving Ling Xiao the chance to threaten him again. Let's go. Ling Xiao coldly glanced at Jian Kuan and then said to Lin Ruoxian and the others, once they left, they would probably have to leave the 8 Immortal Mountain, because today they had completely offended the Sword Tribe. They might not have a foothold in the 8 Immortal Mountain in the future. However, he would definitely return. He wanted to let the Sword Tribe know the consequences of offending him. Ling Xiao. Wait. This time, Jian Kuan did not speak. However, Jian Ruchao spoke. Ling Xiao, you've caused a ruckus at the Sword Tribe's wedding and killed many Sword Tribe martial artists. My Hall of Good and Hall of Evil cannot sit idly by. Today, I'll capture you and hand you over to the Hall of Good and Hall of Evil. The moment Jian Ruchao's voice rang out, the crowd began to discuss. Hee, I didn't expect the Sword Tribe to have such a move. Even if Ling Xiao goes to the Hall of Good and Evil, won't Jian Ruchao still have the final say? In the end, he still couldn't escape death. Although it's a little shameless, who asked them to be from the sword race? They're powerful. What can you do? It's a pity that Ling Xiao is so talented. Why didn't the Dark Ones show up to protect him? It's a pity, but there's nothing we can do about it. He offended the sword race in order to save someone, and he doesn't seem to be on good terms with the leader of the dark race. Who would save him? Ling Xiao looked at Jian Kuan coldly. Are you really going to treat your words as nonsense? Isn't Jian Ruchao from your sword clan? Jian Kuan sneered and said, I only said to let that girl go, but I didn't promise you anything else. Today, you still won't be able to escape death. Don't even think about leaving this place. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Your sister Ling Jiaojiao has already been implanted with a love goo. In this life, she can only marry my son, Jian Lufeng. Otherwise, she will definitely die. Ha ha ha, kid, you can't beat this old man. What? Ling Xiao naturally knew what a love goo was. It was an extremely insidious goo. It was created to make a woman bind a man, or a man bind a woman to his side. If the person who was implanted with the goo chose to marry another man or woman, then the goo would quickly grow and eat the person's heart, causing the person to die a miserable death. He didn't expect Jian Kuan to be so vicious. In order to trap Ling Jiaojiao, he actually did such a thing. Of course, Jian Kuan said this through voice transmission because he didn't want others to know. This old thing was also afraid of losing face. But would Ling Xiao let him have his way? Old dog, you're really shameless and insidious to the extreme. You actually used a love goo to control my sister. Jian Kuan cursed loudly. Love goo? This Jian Kuan is really getting more and more shameless as he gets older. Yeah, he actually did things to this extent. In the future, who would dare to have a marriage alliance with his sword tribe? This means that Ling Jiaojiao was really forced. What Ling Xiao said previously was true. It's a pity. There are only 2 ways to remove a love goo. One is to take the antidote. The other is to kill the person implicated by the love goo, which is Jian Lufeng. But with Ling Xiao's strength, can he touch Jian Lufeng? Everyone couldn't help but sigh. Obviously, there were still people who cared about their reputation. Ling Xiao had already kept his promise to let the people from Sword Tribe go. But Jian Kuan still did such a shameless thing. It really made them feel a little disappointed. Old dog Jian, if you hand over the antidote today, I can let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I will definitely kill your son, Jian Lufeng. No, I swear that all the Sword Tribe martial artists who attacked us today will all die. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth as he looked at Jian Kuan and said, although he didn't have a hostage in his hands, he should still be able to escape by relying on the array. It wouldn't be too late to come back and take revenge when his cultivation was stronger in the future. Jian Kuan originally didn't want others to know about the matter of using a love goo. After all, such a despicable thing absolutely couldn't be brought out in the open. But now that everyone knew, he didn't care anymore. He looked at Ling Xiao and said, if you want the antidote, it's very simple. You choose to commit suicide now and let your sister continue to marry my son. I will immediately give the antidote to your sister. After all, that time, she will be my Sword Tribe's daughter-in-law. Shameless. Lin Ruoxian was usually considered to have self-restraint. Today, he was so angry that he trembled all over because of Jian Kuan. Such a shameless person was actually the Sword Tribe's leader. It really made people blush. Those who achieve great things don't bother about trifles. Don't talk nonsense. Today, either do as I say or die. Once a person was shameless, he would really say anything. If this was before, Jian Kuan might have been secretive. But now he didn't care at all. Boss, fight this old thing to the death. Lin Yang was furious. He had seen shameless people before, but it was really the first time he saw someone as shameless as Jian Kuan today. Don't be rash. If we fight head-on, we definitely won't be a match for the Sword Tribe. Don't forget that the Sword Tribe's elders haven't appeared yet. Ling Xiao had dared to do anything because he hadn't been able to save Ling Jiaojiao previously. But now, since Ling Jiaojiao had been rescued, the first thing he should think of was to safely escape from here. As for the love goo's antidote, if he really couldn't find it, he could still kill Jian Lufeng to solve the problem. Therefore, it wasn't a dead end. He looked at Jian Kuan and said, today I, Ling Xiao, only wanted to let my sister regain her freedom. I don't want to be at odds with the Sword Tribe. If you hand over the antidote now, we can write off the previous enmity. Otherwise, we won't rest until one of us is dead. If I don't kill all the Sword Tribe's martialists, I, Ling Xiao, am not human. What a joke! Chapter 2458. Jian Kuan took out the love goo's antidote. It was a red pill. He held it in his hand and said, Ling Xiao, there's only one antidote in this world. I advise you to do as I say. Otherwise, this antidote will soon be gone. As long as he exerted a little force, the pill would immediately shatter. With his strength, it was easy for him to make the pill disappear completely. Looks like you're going to be shameless to the end. You actually dare to do such a thing in front of so many people. Ling Xiao sneered. Cut the crap. Do you agree or not? Jian Kuan exerted more force in his hand, and cracks appeared on the pill. He knew very well that what he did today would make him a laughingstock. However, there was no turning back. As long as he could kill Ling Xiao and the others, and allow Ling Jiaojiao to continue marrying his son, then those so-called rumors would quickly disappear. Because, in the end, the truth was not important. What was important was strength. As long as you were strong enough, you could even completely fabricate a part of history. Jian Kuan, by destroying the pill, you're pushing your son, Jian Lufeng, to a dead end. You have to remember this clearly. I, Ling Xiao, will never forgive him. Never. Ling Xiao looked coldly at Jian Kuan and said, how dare you threaten me? Jian Kuan activated the Yin Yang Yuan force in his hand. The pill instantly shattered and disappeared in front of everyone. I, Ling Xiao, swear today that I won't rest until the sword race is exterminated, Ling Xiao said loudly. Everyone at the scene heard it clearly. He was furious, but he knew that anger could not solve the problem now. The sword race could not wait for them to fight. At that time, none of them would be able to leave alive. Therefore, what he needed to do now was to safely escape from the Eight Immortal Mountain. No matter how angry he was, he had to endure it for now. Let's go. Ling Xiao looked at Jian Kuan coldly. Originally, it was just a matter of losing face. But today, not only did the Sword Tribe lose face, but they also became blood enemies with him. If he didn't die in the future, he would definitely make the Sword Tribe flow with blood. He didn't understand why Jian Kuan was doing this. Perhaps even Jian Kuan himself didn't know what he wanted to do. He was just acting recklessly based on his personality. Let's go. Where else do you want to go? Ling Xiao, you killed many of my Sword Clan's martial artists. Now you still want to leave? Lin Ruoxian, you are from the Snake Tribe. I do not wish to be your enemy. However, if you dare to make a move today, my Sword Tribe will not show you any mercy. Come, surround them. I don't believe that they can stay in that formation forever. Jian Kuan's idea was correct. The array set up by the array refining stone had a time limit. Normally, it would only last for about 15 minutes. The more powerful ones could last for an hour or so. The refining array stone made by Ling Xiao was even stronger. It could last for at least a day and a night. But what about after this day and night? At that time, Ling Xiao, they all would definitely be at the mercy of others. Jian Kuan, this old fox, probably saw through this point too. That was why he did this. Apologies. Ling Xiao is one of my most important people. I can't watch him be killed by you all. Today, since your Sword Clan is bent on having your way and insists on doing this unjust act, then I, Lin Ruoxian, might have to fight a bloody battle with your Sword Clan. Lin Ruoxian's choice was very simple. It was impossible for her to abandon Ling Xiao and leave by herself. Good, very good. Today, all of you will die here. Jian Kuan was enraged to the extreme. Then he waved his hand and said, Kill! Leave none alive. Hoo-hoo, Sword Clan's clan head, how awe-inspiring. To actually even want to kill my Snake Clan's clan head successor. Could it be that you're really planning on starting a war with my Snake Clan? Amidst the cold laughter, a group of people stepped into the courtyard from outside. Snake Clan's clan head. Jian Kuan's expression became incomparably ugly. Today's wedding banquet. The Snake Clan sent an elder over to attend. Now that the Snake Clan's clan head came personally, it was clearly not to congratulate him, but to find trouble with him. Although his strength was on par with this person, once they started fighting, Ling Xiao and the rest would probably take the opportunity to slip away. Jian Kuan, what you've done today has already crossed the line. It's better to stop while it's still early. Perhaps I can be a peacemaker and help you all quell the resentment between each other. The Snake Clan's clan head said indifferently, Impossible. That Ling Xiao killed my son and my daughter-in-law. How can I spare him? Jian Kuan was planning to walk this path to the end, because he absolutely could not admit defeat now. Otherwise, the Sword Clan would really lose face. However, you can take away Lin Ruoxian. I also don't want to be enemies with your Snake Clan. Jian Kuan did not want to let Ling Xiao go, but he also did not want to completely offend the Snake Clan. Therefore, letting Lin Ruoxian go was the best choice. Sister Ruoxian, you should go. Ling Xiao's idea was very simple. He could bring Qing Wanhua, Lin Yang, and Ling Jiaojiao out of the Eight Immortal Mountain, but he could not implicate Lin Ruoxian. Sister Ruoxian, don't be angry. I have my own way to escape from here. However, once I escape, I'll no longer be a disciple of the Eight Immortal Mountain. I can't implicate you. He transmitted his voice. Are you really confident that you can escape? Lin Ruoxian asked hesitantly. Of course. Have you forgotten about my teleportation formation? However, that thing can't take too many people away at once. If Sister Ruoxian leaves with the Snake Clan's clan head, you'll be doing me a great favor. Ling Xiao said with a smile. All right, I can leave first. However, if anything happens to you, I won't live alone. I'll take revenge on the Sword Clan for you. Lin Ruoxian trusted Ling Xiao very much. Therefore, today was no exception. She nodded and walked towards the Snake Clan's clan head and stood beside the Snake Clan's clan head. The Snake Clan head did not leave. Instead, she stood outside the teleportation formation with Lin Ruoxian, waiting for the situation to change. In fact, she was very clear that Lin Ruoxian would never obediently leave with her. She loved this disciple of hers very much. Therefore, she did not want to go against Lin Ruoxian's wishes. Kill him. After Lin Ruoxian left, Jian Kuan gave out another order. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. It seemed like today was going to be a bad day. Even if he used the teleportation formation to escape from the courtyard, the Sword Clan would definitely hunt him down. However, he did not have the time to think so much. It was time to leave. Lin Yang, Qingwan Hua, protect me. I'm going to activate the teleportation formation. Yes. The two of them replied. Just as Ling Xiao was about to activate the formation, a black figure suddenly appeared from the horizon. It actually turned the entire day into night. He held a long sword that was as black as ink in his hand. His long black hair fluttered in the wind. His black clothes were especially eye-catching. Only his eyes were blood red. That was the color of anger. Jian Kuan, do you want to die? Chapter 2459. The terrifying voice drilled into the ears of the sword tribe martial artists like thunder. Among the sword tribe martial artists, the weaker ones fainted on the spot, bleeding from their 7 orifices and dying. Even those with high cultivations were shocked. Dark Knight Formless. Everyone recognized this person. Dark Knight Formless, who was called the most cowardly mountain master not long ago, regained his former domineering and powerful strength because of a disciple. And this disciple was Ling Xiao. The mountain master is here. That's great. Lin Yang and Qingwan Hua were pleasantly surprised when they saw Dark Knight Formless. Although Ling Xiao might be able to escape, once he did, it meant that he would be completely separated from the 8 Immortal Mountain. This was very unfair to Ling Xiao. After all, they were going to fight for the Shadow Black Gourd. If Ling Xiao left just like that, wouldn't it benefit in Feitian? Now, as long as Dark Knight Formless arrived, with his strength, he could definitely speak to the sect master. Ling Xiao wouldn't have to escape in a hurry. Dark Knight Formless, are you going to meddle in the Sword Tribe's business? Jian Kuan frowned when he saw Dark Knight Formless. He knew about Dark Knight Formless' past glory. In order to deal with Dark Knight Formless, some people used very vicious means to kill Dark Knight Formless. Since then, Dark Knight Formless had been dispirited, but this guy had regained his former domineering aura. Not only did his strength not decrease, but he became even stronger. So what if I meddle? Ling Xiao is my disciple. You dared to kill him. Why can't I meddle? Dark Knight Formless looked at Jian Kuan coldly. Dark Knight Formless, let's see what you can do. Big brother, stop him. I'll go kill that kid. Jian Ruchao knew that Dark Knight Formless' arrival made things very complicated. Originally, he wanted to capture Ling Xiao alive and do some research on him. He wanted to see what secrets this brat had that allowed him to become so powerful in such a short time. But now, it seemed that he had to cut the Gordian knot. Jian Kuan understood and instantly charged at Dark Knight Formless. Jian Ruchao, on the other hand, pounced on Ling Xiao. The two of them attacked separately. Even if the knight was invisible, it was impossible to stop them at the same time. If he forcefully wanted to save Ling Xiao, then he would definitely have to suffer Jian Kuan's brazen attack. Even though it's a little despicable, this is the most effective method. The doyen of the sword race, Jian Ruchao, is truly an ambitious and ruthless character. Nightwalker sighed. However, I'm afraid that they've underestimated my second brother's strength. At some point, No Light in the Night had also appeared and was standing beside Nightwalker and Hidden Flower. That Jian Ru Chao is going to be in trouble. He was actually the expert who had been locking onto Jian Kuan, preventing Jian Kuan from making a move against Ling Xiao. This person's attitude towards Ling Xiao was truly indescribable, although the main reason was that he wanted Ling Xiao to acknowledge him as his adoptive father. However, this method was still worthy of Ling Xiao's repayment. What? Both Nightwalker and Hidden Flower looked over. Dark Knight Formless did not move. A black shadow emerged from his body and pounced towards the sword like a tide. His main body, however, pushed Jian Kuan back with a palm strike. That black shadow actually grabbed Jian Ruchao's neck, causing him to be unable to move. Let go of me, Dark Knight Formless. I'm the Deputy Hall Master of the Hall of Good and Punishment for Evil. Be careful of the Sect Master's punishment if you dare to treat me like this. Jian Ruchao was a little flustered. He could clearly feel Dark Knight Formless' terrifying killing intent. Deputy Hall Master of the Hall of Good and Punishment for Evil? How awe-inspiring. Let me tell you, ever since I recovered, I swore to the heavens that if anyone dares to attack my people, no matter who they are, I won't be afraid. When it's time to kill, I'll kill. When it's time to beat them up, I'll beat them up. Not to mention a mere Deputy Hall Master like you. Even if it's the young Sect Master, Lin Yutian, or even the Sect Master, I'll still dare to touch them. After saying this, he threw Jian Ruchao to the ground. Logically speaking, even if an expert of this level was thrown to the ground, nothing would happen to him. However, Jian Ruchao realized that during the time he was thrown to the ground, he could not mobilize any of the elemental energy in his body. Even his body seemed to be much weaker. He spat out blood from the fall, and several of his ribs were broken. He was in so much pain that he could no longer stand. So strong! This is the true strength of the Hill Master. Ling Xiao looked at Dark Knight Formless and heaved a sigh of relief. Dark Knight Formless did not dare to say that he was the strongest warrior in the 8 Immortals County, but he was definitely one of the strongest. Being in the top 5 shouldn't be a problem. It seemed that things were not going in the worst direction. Dark Knight Formless' arrival allowed his plan to reach a perfect conclusion. Jian Ruchao groaned on the ground. Jian Kuan's face was pale, and he did not dare to make a move. He had seen Dark Knight Formless' strength. No one was an idiot who would provoke such a person for no reason. Of course, there were elders in the Sword Tribe who could deal with Dark Knight Formless. However, if the elders were to make a move, would the elders of the Dark Tribe let it go? The elders of the Sword Tribe were the ultimate weapons of every family. If it did not involve the destruction of the family, they would not easily make a move. In Ling Xiao's other memory, there was a terrifying weapon called a nuclear bomb. It was called a strategic weapon and a deterrent weapon. Normally, they would not make a move. If they did, it would be the end of the world. The elders were similar to nuclear bombs. If they were to make a move, the 8 Immortals Mountain would not be far from collapsing. Can I take them away now? Dark Knight Formless looked at Jian Kuan and asked, Dark Knight Formless, are you not afraid of the Sect Master's punishment? Jian Kuan gritted his teeth and asked, Punishment? If the Sect Master is fair, then the Sword Tribe should bear the main responsibility for today's matter. Don't think that I don't know because I wasn't here before. You used the love Gu to control Ling Xiao's sister and forced her to marry Jian Lufeng. If the Sect Master finds out about this, what do you think will happen? Black Knight Formless sneered. That's because Ling Xiao killed a few of your sons and your daughter-in-law. Seeing how pitiful your sword clan is, I didn't want to kill any more people. Otherwise, do you think I wouldn't dare to destroy the Sword Tribe? He was very domineering, but Jian Kuan could do nothing about it. Whether it was in terms of strength or reason, Dark Knight Formless had the advantage. If he could settle this privately today, it would be more beneficial for the Sword Tribe. Although it would be very embarrassing, at least he would not be severely punished by the sect master. Don't you think you're too domineering? You're going overboard? Jian Kuan knew that he could not offend Ling Xiao, although he knew that letting these people go would be more beneficial for the Sword Tribe. But he couldn't swallow this resentment. The Sword Tribe was being humiliated, but he could not do anything. There was nothing more infuriating than this. I am domineering and overboard. What can you do? Dark Knight, Formless, sneered. In the past, he was not as domineering as he was today. Perhaps it was because he was suppressed and humiliated by too many people when he was keeping a low profile. Chapter 2460. Jian Kuan's eyes sharpened with killing intent. I know you're strong, Dark Knight, but you're not our enemy. There are still elders who can stop you. I hope you won't force us. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered, let alone us. Dark Knight looked at Jian Kuan calmly, then suddenly laughed. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered? Then bite it and show it to me. It's not that I look down on you, but I can wipe you off the face of 8 Immortal Mountain all by myself. Although your elders are powerful, even if those 2 old fellows join forces, they still won't be a match for me. You can try if you don't believe me. My patience is limited. The veins on Jian Kuan's forehead bulged as humiliation filled his heart. His clan had never suffered such humiliation since becoming one of the 8 great clans. But today, Dark Knight was doing this to them. Jian Kuan really wanted to throw caution to the wind and have all of his clan's experts kill Dark Knight. Are you planning to have all of your experts deal with me? Then do it. I'll be waiting. Since I've broken away from the dark races, why don't I destroy your clan and create a new one? What do you say we call it the Dark Knight clan? Dark Knight's expression was calm, and his tone was indifferent. He was clearly joking with Jian Kuan, not taking him seriously at all. Sigh, Dark Knight. Why do you have to do this? Leave. I only hope that today's grudge can be resolved. Just as Jian Kuan was about to fight to the death, an old voice called out. Kuan, let them go. He's telling the truth. Humans have to bow their heads before the strong. But elder... Jian Kuan could tell it was the second elder's voice. No buts. What you did was ridiculous. The saber sword Godemper's martial soul and bloodline are important, but you shouldn't have acted so recklessly. I'm sorry for making a fool of myself, but I don't want what happened today to spread. The Sword Race's second clan elder beat Jian Kuan while threatening all the guests present. Whoever dared to spread the news of what the Sword Race had done would naturally be annihilated by them. Although he didn't say it out loud, his meaning was clear. Let's go. Since the Sword Race's elders had already stepped forward, He Wuxing didn't want to make things too awkward. Unless he wanted to exterminate the entire clan, it would be best if he left now. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to clean up the mess. Jian Kuan, where's the antidote for my sister's love goo? Ling Xiao looked at Jian Kuan and asked. He did not leave immediately. I've said it before. There's only one set of the antidote, and I've already destroyed it. As for the method to make the antidote, only the master who lives in the Chen Kingdom's capital has it. I won't, Jian Kuan said shamelessly. When Jian Kuan said these words, he finally felt a little refreshed in his heart. He had had enough of being vexed today. However, the only thing that satisfied him was the poison of the love goo. Just as he said, the antidote could only be made by that master. As for the other method of curing the poison, that was to kill Jian Lufeng. However, Jian Lufeng was the Sword Clan's most outstanding genius. Even the 2 clan elders would risk their lives to protect him. It was almost impossible for others to kill him. Even if Dark Knight Formless really wanted to fight, it would definitely be a situation where both sides would suffer. At that time, the Sword Clan would still have the upper hand. He had thought of this point, and so had Dark Knight Formless. However, Dark Knight Formless did not care about the consequences. He looked at Jian Lufeng wanting to kill him. He had poured all of his love for his son onto Ling Xiao. Now that Ling Xiao's sister was in trouble, he naturally had to do his best to save her. Mountain Master, there's no need for that. I'll find an opportunity to kill Jian Lufeng. Ling Xiao was not putting on an act. It was just that he could tell that the situation was delicate. If they really had to fight to the death, unless there was help, Dark Knight Formless would definitely not have the upper hand. Therefore, rather than letting Dark Knight Formless take the risk, he might as well raise his strength as soon as possible and find an opportunity to kill Jian Lufeng. He was now a disciple of the 8 Immortal Mountain. He would have plenty of chances to fight with Jian Lufeng, just like how he killed those people in the Desert Sea and Desert Cloud. He would have plenty of chances to kill Jian Lufeng as well. All right, I'll listen to you. Dark Knight Formless looked at Ling Xiao and nodded. Then he turned around and left with his group. Looking at Dark Knight Formless and his group disappearing into the distance, Jian Kuen's anger had reached its peak. He suddenly roared and punched the ground that was already full of potholes. The ground cracked and a huge crater appeared. Aggrieved, his sword race had really suffered a double loss today. They were extremely unlucky. Moreover, they had become a laughingstock in the eyes of these people. Although these people might not dare to speak of what happened because they were afraid of the sword race's elders. But after all, there were still so many people who knew. If there was someone who could not hold it in anymore and spoke, would the sword race really be able to find out? Would they really be able to kill all those people? Don't forget, among the people who came today, the other 7 great clans, other than the moon race, had all sent people. Could the sword race offend the other 7 great clans? Then they would really be fools. Don't worry, Jian Kuen. The Grand Elder is in seclusion. Once he comes out, he will definitely be able to defeat Dark Knight Formless. At that time, our sword race will be able to take revenge. Right now, your priority is not to think about these things. So many children have died. Our sword race is now accumulating resources to replenish young warriors. Although the advancement test is only held once a year and it will only be our turn once every 8 years, it's fine. You can go to the underworld and look for them. Some of the more powerful youths can be directly taken back and made into our sword race's inner clan disciples. The second elder's voice entered Jian Kuen's ears. Knowing that there was a chance for revenge, Jian Kuen felt a lot better. No problem, second elder. I will immediately do it. Dark Knight Formless, Ling Xiao, your time of death will come soon. He would endure today's grievances. When he took revenge, he would vent them all. On the other side, Dark Knight Formless and Ling Xiao's group had already arrived at Ling Xiao's courtyard. Ling Xiao, after today's incident, your sister can no longer stay in the sword race. What do you plan to do in the future? Dark Knight Formless asked. Mountain Master, can you let my elder sister be your disciple? I think that in this 8 Immortals Mountain, you are the best in both strength and character. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Why don't you just help my sister? I can't. My martial arts are not suitable for her. Dark Knight Formless shook his head. Hearing this, Ling Xiao and Ling Jiaojiao were clearly disappointed. But it's fine. I know people from the moon race. Perhaps your sister can be sent to the moon race to cultivate. The moon race is different from other clans. They have very few internal conflicts and also very few external conflicts. That's why they have been able to survive. Chapter 2461. Mountain Lord, you're taking a long time to speak. That's good. Sister will go to the Moon Clan, and I'll seize the time to cultivate and kill Jian Lufeng so that sister can be free from the pain of the love goo. Ling Xiao said excitedly, All right, I'll stay in this courtyard and never leave. This way, you won't have any worries and can focus on your own matters. Yi Wuxing returned from his mission this time and found out that so many things had happened. Even the disciple he wanted to protect the most was almost killed. He resigned from his position as the Mountain Lord of Black Celestial Mountain and found the sect leader of 8 Immortal Mountain to take up the position of Supreme Elder. He would only take action when the sect was in danger. Otherwise, he would never leave. Yi Wuxing had put in a lot of effort. For these few youngsters, he was willing to bind himself to this small 8 Immortal Mountain. Fortunately, once one had a goal, one would not feel tired. Then Yi Wuxing made a trip to the Moon Clan and made arrangements for Ling Jiaojiao before returning to the courtyard. He became the most powerful bodyguard in the courtyard. With him around, Ling Xiao could cultivate in peace, so as not to be hindered by these matters. After all, even if he was smarter than others, if he was too distracted, there would still be problems. The battle for the Shadow Black Gourd was one more day. Ling Xiao had already broken through to the peak of the 3rd level of Hell of the Yin-Yang realm. However, it was still unknown whether he could defeat Fei Qian, who was at the peak of the 4th level of Hell. Naturally, he wanted to become stronger. Previously, when he caused a ruckus in the Sword Clan, he had benefited greatly. The energy that had been hidden in his body in the past had been stimulated once again, allowing him to reach the 5th stage. As long as he reached the 10th stage, he could break through. Therefore, he had to cultivate in peace for a day. Therefore, from this moment on, Ling Xiao did not leave the courtyard. It was as if no one knew what happened in the Sword Clan. No one dared to speak of it. However, this did not matter to Ling Xiao. What he wanted was Jian Liufeng's life. Since Jian Kuan had destroyed the antidote for the love goo, he could only solve the problem by killing Jian Lufeng. Jian Kuan and Jian Lufeng brought this upon themselves. The next morning, No Light in the Night arrived at the villa. He brought Ling Xiao, Lin Yang, and the Qingwan flower to the Dark Hall. Of course, only Ling Xiao had the qualifications to fight for the Shadow Black Gourd. Lin Yang and Qingwan Hua were only there to observe. They could learn a lot from watching a battle of this level. Aside from the leader and the elders, there was also an old man in the hall. Judging by his aura, Ling Xiao knew that he was most likely an elder of the Dark Ones. Otherwise, how could his position be higher than Darkwalkers? To put it bluntly, the Patriarch was just the manager of the clan, while the Patriarch was the one in charge, the boss behind the scenes. The Dark Ones had an elder, but he was clearly stronger than the one from the Sword Ones. When Ling Xiao looked at him, he looked back at Ling Xiao. Just this glance made Ling Xiao feel as if the entire sky was pressing down on him. He almost knelt on the ground. However, he didn't kneel. Even though his legs were already emitting creaking sounds, it sounded like his bones were about to break. He still didn't kneel. In terms of willpower, he wouldn't lose to anyone. The Patriarch wasn't qualified to make him submit. The Dark One's elder couldn't help but be surprised. In fact, he had heard of many people complaining about Ling Xiao. Regardless of whether those people were telling the truth or not, he believed that Ling Xiao must have done something wrong by offending so many people. Therefore, the moment he appeared, he wanted to give Ling Xiao a show of strength. After all, he was a powerful 6th-level Yin-Yang realm expert. He thought that he could easily make Ling Xiao bow his head and admit his mistake. However, reality surprised him. He began to understand why so many people had tattled on this kid. As the saying went, a person who wasn't envied was mediocre. Perhaps this kid was really a genius. Ling Xiao didn't know what the Patriarch was thinking. He just looked at the old man. He looked very old, but his hair and beard were still black and shiny. He also looked a little gloomy. This was probably a characteristic of the Dark Ones. When the Patriarch withdrew his pressure, Ling Xiao felt a little better. The cracked bones in his legs began to heal quickly. Greetings, Patriarch. No Light in the Night was very respectful in front of the Patriarch. Wukong, I heard that you wanted to adopt that foreign disciple as your son. The Patriarch glanced at No Light in the Night and asked, Yes, but the kid didn't want to. No Light in the Night shook his head helplessly. Oh, then I'd like to see how capable this kid is. How dare he refuse to be your son? The Patriarch glanced at Ling Xiao again and asked, Is everyone here? An Yexing hurriedly reported. All the inner disciples, except for those who couldn't come back because of their mission and those who participated in the fight for the Shadow Black Gourd, are here. Ling Xiao is the only outsider. He's here too. And it's good that you're here. Those who want to watch the show can stay here. As for the rest of the participants, you can go to the Heaven Sacrificial Altar through the transmission array. The test will be held there. As for the rules, Dark Knight, you can tell them. The Patriarch nodded and looked at An Yexing. Yes, Patriarch. An Yexing cleared his throat and said, the fight for the Shadow Black Gourd is very simple. When the fight starts, you will enter the inner space of the Heaven Worship Altar. The Shadow Black Gourd is in the depths of the altar. You can find it yourself. However, on the way to the depths of the altar, there will be prisoners that we arranged in advance to block the way. These prisoners are very powerful and bloodthirsty. I told them that as long as they could survive this battle, they would be able to regain their freedom. Therefore, in order to survive, they will kill those who are against them at all costs. Each of you must kill at least 10 prisoners and obtain 10 sin extermination stones. I must remind you that the sin extermination stones are owned by the most evil people. They contain a powerful evil force. Only by killing them can you obtain the sin extermination stones. Only those who obtain at least 10 sin extermination stones are qualified to touch the Shadow Black Gourd. Of course, in order to make the fight more intense, you can fight each other in the process. Hearing these rules, Ling Xiao couldn't help but frown. He was the only participant from the outer clan. The rest were all inner clan members. They probably followed in Fei Yan's lead. If these people ganged up on him, he would be in big trouble. Furthermore, this time he would be fighting alone. There would be no one to help him. Chapter 2462. I have a question. Ling Xiao suddenly turned to look at An Yexing. What is it? An Yexing did not dare make things difficult for Ling Xiao because the elder was present. Thus, he suppressed his displeasure and asked, "Can I kill during the battle?" Ling Xiao asked this question because he knew that he would be besieged once he entered the battle. If he could not kill, he would be in a very difficult situation. Thus, he had to ask clearly, "Yes." Before An Yexing could say anything, the elder spoke first. "But who do you want to kill?" "I don't want to kill anyone. However, I have to say something first. I will kill anyone who dares to make a move on me after entering the space of the sky altar." His tone was calm when he said this, as if he was playing it down. However, this caused an uproar of laughter. "Ling Xiao, it's not that I look down on you, but who can you beat without the help of the powerhouse behind you?" Even though he had seen Ling Xiao's might in the sword race, An Yexing still believed that the powerhouse behind Ling Xiao had helped him. However, he did not sense the presence of that powerhouse today. He had probably not come because he was afraid of the elder. "You don't have to worry about that, Patriarch. Believe it or not, I'll say it right here. If you want to die, you can come and find trouble with me. I'll accompany you to the end." Ling Xiao said nonchalantly. What an arrogant kid. The elder narrowed his eyes and looked at Ling Xiao, saying, "This old man must remind you that in the space of the sacrificial altar, no matter if it's a summoned being or a spirit body, they cannot exist. I don't know who the powerhouse behind you is, but don't even think about using it in the sky altar. Even if he doesn't fear this type of nomological law, I will eliminate you immediately if I discover it. Do you understand?" "Understood." Ling Xiao nodded. What a joke. Would he need to borrow the power of the divine book, the butterfly lady, and Yuan Venerate to deal with this bunch of bastards? After all, the 3 strongest geniuses of the dark race, dark underworld, dark knight Wuzuan, and dark gold, would not participate. The strongest was probably in Fei Tian. What was he afraid of? All right, let's all enter the teleportation array. The elder didn't waste any time and waved his hand. Everyone began to step into the teleportation array. Under Nightwalker's personal leadership, they arrived at the entrance of the heaven altar. The inner clan disciples who followed in Fei Tian's lead all looked at Ling Xiao coldly and mockingly. It was as if he was looking at a treasure chest. They did not take Ling Xiao's warning to heart at all. This time, their mission was to let Fei Tian obtain the Dark Shadow Gourd and then obstruct Ling Xiao with all their might. If he could kill Ling Xiao, that would naturally be the best. Have you heard? That Ling Xiao went to the Sword Tribe to cause trouble. In the end, he was heavily injured and almost died. If it wasn't for Yi Wuxing's timely arrival, he wouldn't have been able to keep his life. This trash. Why does young Master Fei Tian value him so much? It was clear that the Sword Tribe had spread some rumors to portray their failure beautifully. According to their rumors, Ling Xiao was almost beaten half to death. The person who killed the geniuses of the Sword Tribe was not Ling Xiao, but Yi Wuxing. Therefore, other than those who were at the wedding that day, no one else knew the truth. I knew he was trash, but this guy is considered a powerful person among the trash. After all, he's the #1 Outer Clan disciple. This time, as long as we do this for young Master Fei Tian, we'll definitely get a lot of benefits. But his warning just now seems to have guessed that we'll deal with him. Are you afraid? What's there to be afraid of? I'm already at the peak of the 3rd level of hell in the Yin Yang realm. I'm only 3 levels away from breaking through the 4th level of hell. Even if you don't do anything, I can kill him alone. I really don't know what young Master Fei Tian is thinking. Isn't he overestimating this kid by having so many of us deal with him? Cut the crap. Young Master Fei Tian has his reasons for making this arrangement. Ling Xiao could hear the whispers and discussions like these very clearly. Hearing these discussions, Ling Xiao's face revealed a cold smile. He had already issued a warning before. Since there were still people who wanted to die, he didn't mind killing a few more. So what if they were inner clan disciples? These guys were all enemies, anyway. Killing one would reduce the threat. Everyone else thought that his warning was a joke, but only he knew that it wasn't just for show. Nightwalker stood there, waiting for the battle to begin. 1 minute before the time arrived, he would open the transportation formation of the Heaven Altar and let these people in. Perhaps it was because he was really bored, but a young warrior beside Fei Tian looked at Ling Xiao and said mockingly, "Kid, this is supposed to be a battle between inner clan disciples. If you know what's good for you, you'd better get out of here. Otherwise, you'll die in vain." When he spoke, the rest of the people looked at him provocatively. That arrogant face was really annoying, and Fei Tian also looked at Ling Xiao coldly and sneered disdainfully. His strength was the strongest in this battle. He was at the early stage of the 4th level of hell in the Yin Yang realm. If he used the Dark Tribe's special secret technique, he would be able to unleash a terrifying combat power. Slap! Ling Xiao didn't waste any time. With a flash of his body, a resounding slap rang out. The young man who spoke was slapped to the ground, his face red and swollen. "You! How dare you hit me? Young Master Fei Tian, he hit me." The young man's strength wasn't great, but he was at the late stage of the 3rd level of hell in the first transformation. However, he was slapped to the ground by Ling Xiao. He felt aggrieved. "You dare to hit me?" And Fei Tian didn't expect Ling Xiao to do this. He couldn't help but frown. "Kid, it looks like you really have a death wish. I only wanted to teach you a lesson. At most, I would destroy your martial arts and turn you into a cripple. But now, it looks like you have a death wish. You're the one who has a death wish. I need to repeat what I said before. After entering the Heaven Altar, whoever dares to humiliate and provoke me will be killed without mercy. Now, a slap is considered a light punishment. The Heaven Altar was very dangerous. There were thousands of prisoners. If one wasn't careful, they could be killed. Therefore, Ling Xiao wouldn't show any mercy after entering. Enough! At this moment, Nightwalker shouted coldly, "We're all disciples of the same clan. What's there to fight about? Fei Tian, you too. Your cultivation level is already so much higher than his. There's no need to keep fighting with him. It's as if you're on the same level as him." On the surface, An Yexing sounded like he was trying to dissuade Fei Tian. However, Anyone who wasn't a fool could tell that he was praising his son and mocking Ling Xiao. Don't worry, father. The shadow black gourd belongs to me. As for someone else, I'm afraid he won't even be able to keep his life. He doesn't deserve to be a member of the dark race. Chapter 2463. Don't worry, father. Not only will I get the gourd, but I'll also make someone sleep in the altar forever. And Fei Tian sneered. It's good that you're confident, but don't be careless. Nightwalker nodded in satisfaction. He looked at Ling Xiao and said, You too. Don't always provoke your own kind. Learn how to live in harmony. Don't say that they're looking for trouble with you. There are so many of them. Why don't they look for trouble with others instead of you? I'm provoking them. Ling Xiao sneered. Lord Patriarch, did you not wash your eyes today? They dared to look for trouble with me because I'm not strong enough. I'm not willing to submit to them. But soon, they won't dare to look for trouble with me anymore. Once they're all dead, the Dark Clan will be more harmonious. Ling Xiao didn't like Nightwalker at all. Did he think that Ling Xiao didn't feel the murderous aura he released back at the Sword Clan? He didn't have a chance. If there was a chance, he believed that Nightwalker and Hidden Flower would have killed him. He was extremely lucky to be able to survive. Good boy. How dare you act so arrogant in front of this patriarch? You're really unlikable. The way I see it, if you die, the Dark Clan will be more harmonious. Nightwalker said coldly. Is that so? Then let's see if they have the ability to get rid of a pest like me. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Go ahead and be arrogant, but soon you won't have the chance to be arrogant. I forgot to tell you that the patriarch just went to your courtyard. Nightwalker sneered. You should know why he went there, right? Nightwalker has been acting out of line lately. He's making enemies for an insignificant brat like you. The patriarch is going to teach him a lesson. What? Hearing this, Ling Xiao could not help but reveal a shocked expression. The patriarch of the Dark Clan should be on the same level as Nightwalker. If he made a move, Nightwalker would have suffered a setback. As for who would win in the end, it was hard to say. But the patriarch was doing this to suppress Nightwalker. The elders may not be a match for the mountain chieftain. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He Ye's formless aura was indeed stronger than that of the elders. Although Ling Xiao didn't know their exact cultivation bases, he could roughly judge their strength from their auras. I haven't finished speaking yet. The sword race has already complained to the sect master. Even though the sect master didn't do anything, the young sect master Lin Yutian went with our elders. The young master was a genius, and his strength had probably surpassed the clan elders. If the two of them join hands, what do you think will happen to Dark Knight? Nightwalker sneered. Not good. Hearing this, Ling Xiao decided to give up on the fight for the Shadow Black Gourd and help Dark Knight Formless. If something were to happen to Dark Knight Formless, he would definitely feel uneasy. Wait, Ling Xiao. The person who had called out to Ling Xiao was a Yuan Venerate. Of course, he had communicated directly through his spirit power. What is it, Master? Do you still not understand? With your current strength, what can you do even if you go? You won't be of any help. Instead, you will become a burden. Furthermore, that old dog Nightwalker chose to remind you at this time so that you would give up on the fight. Don't be fooled by his words. He might sound confident, but deep down he is still somewhat afraid of you. The Yuan Venerate said, I know all this. However, if I don't help despite knowing that the Mountain Master is in danger, I will really regret it if something happens to him. Ling Xiao said, Then let's get Shen Jian to help, the Yuan Venerate said. Although she won't be fighting for long, I believe that with Dark Knight Formless, defeating Lin Yutian and the Dark Race Elder shouldn't be a problem. You can participate in the fight with peace of mind. All right. Ling Xiao pondered this for a moment before deciding to follow the Yuan Venerate's suggestion. However, he didn't just want Xindian to help. He also wanted to release the Butterfly Lady. He shouldn't be in any danger for the time being. On the other hand, Dark Knight Formless couldn't fall. Once Dark Knight Formless fell, Luo Yinyang would be in big trouble on the 8 Immortal Mountain. Master, Xin Dian will not disappoint you. Shen Dian and the butterfly lady left at the same time. One of them was an illusory existence, while the other was just a small butterfly. No one noticed them when they left. Even if they did, no one would care at this time. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and looked at the sky altar. What he needed to do now was to first obtain the shadow black gourd and then comprehend the powerful cultivation methods and martial skills from it to make himself stronger. Only by becoming stronger would he not need to worry dark night, formless about everything. All right, time is almost up. Get ready to enter the sky altar. Nightwalker couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he saw that Ling Xiao hadn't left. It just so happened that the time of the fight was approaching. Thus, he had no choice but to activate the teleportation array. However, the moment Ling Xiao stepped into the teleportation array, Nightwalker sneered, "I thought you were a righteous person. I didn't expect you to not care about dark night, formless, dangerous situation at all. Thank you for your concern, Patriarch. However, Mountain Lord will be fine. Even if the Patriarch and young sect master go, they will only be rebuffed." Ling Xiao sneered. He knew that Nightwalker was just mocking him. However, he had already done his best to help Dark Knight Formless, so he didn't feel uneasy. Pretentious brat. Seeing Ling Xiao enter the sky altar, Nightwalker's face revealed a ferocious killing intent. "Son, I'll leave the rest to you." Due to the special barrier within the sky altar, the outside world couldn't know what was happening inside. Even the live broadcast couldn't do that. At this time, and Fei Tian and the others who had entered the teleportation array first were waiting there. They watched as Ling Xiao walked in, and Fei Tian said coldly, "Ling Xiao, I warned you to stay away from the Lin Ruoxian. However, not only did you not listen, you even went from bad to worse. You even asked the Lin Ruoxian to go with you to the Sword Tribe to cause trouble. Looks like you really didn't take this young master's words seriously, Then don't blame me for what happened today. Brothers, if anyone can kill Ling Xiao, I'll give him a set of outstanding high-tier Jade grade martial skills, a set of outstanding high-tier Jade grade movement skills, and a large number of mysterious great elixirs. Oh, right, and 10 million low-grade spiritual stones." Hearing this, the crowd went into an uproar. Such a reward was even more worthwhile than the Dark Shadow Gourd. It seemed like Fei Tian was prepared to pay a huge price to kill Ling Xiao. "Hee, you think highly of me. However, with the strength of a bunch of good-for-nothings, do you think you can kill me?" Ling Xiao was also shocked by Fei Tian's generous reward. "How dare you be so arrogant?" This time, there were a total of 32 inner clan disciples participating in the competition. Every one of them is above the late stage of the 3rd level of hell in the Yin Yang stage. Do you think you can win? Chapter 2464. After saying that, Fei Tian rushed forward. Although the prisoners guarding this place were powerful, they were nothing to him. In front of Ling Xiao, there were 31 people blocking his way. All of them had the same cultivation level as him. Even if they were not rebirth realm martial artists, their strength was about the same. They blocked the road, which was less than 3 meters wide, so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. With us here, don't even think about getting past us. Perhaps because he was emboldened by the presence of the inner clan disciples, and Farron laughed coldly and said, "The shadow black gourd belongs to Brother Fei Tian. You stole my courtyard. Let's settle this grudge here today. And Farron, I've let you go twice. This time, I won't let you go again. Since you want to die, don't blame me for it." Ling Xiao looked at Farron coldly. He had given Farron 2 chances to live because Farron was not a threat to him. However, Farron did not know how to take pity on him. He actually dared to come and die. If he did not kill him, no one would take his words seriously in the future. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. There had to be a chicken. Since that was the case, Farron would be the chicken waiting to be slaughtered. After saying that, he suddenly turned into the shadow of a wolf and rushed into the crowd. At this moment, not a single one of the 31 martial artists reacted. "Stop him!" And Farron was scared out of his wits. He could see the strong killing intent in Ling Xiao's eyes. If Ling Xiao got close, he would definitely die. He shouted desperately, hoping that someone would help him. Unfortunately, no one could help him. Ling Xiao had already integrated the 1,000-mile wolf movement technique with his martial arts. When he used the movement technique, he could also use martial arts. It was still the meteor sword technique. It was the first move of the meteor sword technique, fall. This move consumed the least amount of internal energy and was also the fastest. Although it was not as powerful, it was more than enough to deal with Farron. "Save me." Those were the last words Farron left in this world. As his voice fell, his head also fell to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. Ling Xiao didn't leave after killing Farron. He actually returned to his original position and coldly wiped the ordinary long sword in his hand. Because the heavy sword from before had already shattered, he could only casually pick a few swords and put them in his storage ring, ready to use at any time. Although it was called an ordinary sword, it was still a mortal grade spirit artifact. However, it was much worse than the previous heavy sword. How can this guy be so powerful? Looking at Farron's pitiful state, everyone trembled in fear. Although many of them were reincarnation realm martial artists, they were obviously delicate flowers cultivated in a greenhouse. Seeing such a fierce opponent, they were already frightened out of their wits. "Do you still want to attack?" Ling Xiao shook off the blood on his sword and pointed at the remaining 30 people. He said coldly, "My words are still valid. Whoever dares to make a move will die." There were those who were afraid of him, but there were also those who didn't believe him. "I don't believe that Ling Xiao has 3 heads and 6 arms if everyone attacks together." In the crowd, a tall and strong young man roared. He was able to mobilize some people. There were more than 10 people who were willing to attack Ling Xiao with him. Ling Xiao smiled coldly and said, "Speaking of 3 heads and 6 arms, I really do have 3 heads and 6 arms. Today I'll let you see. Dharma Seal. Third Prince Neza, 3 heads and 6 arms." Due to the uniqueness of the Seal of Immortality, Ling Xiao rarely used it, mainly because he was afraid that the people from the Palace of Immortality would find out. However, the Seal of Immortality was still one of Ling Xiao's most powerful moves. In an instant, he revealed Neza's Dharma Seal, which had 3 heads and 6 arms. Each of the 3 heads spat out a different breath. Fire, lightning, magma. The 6 arms released 6 moves at the same time. It was actually the 1st to 7th moves of the meteor sword technique. The 5th and 6th moves had already been combined into one. Strictly speaking, there were 6 moves. With just one move, 9 people were killed in an instant. Moreover, these 9 people died extremely miserably. They were burned by fire, killed by lightning, disfigured by magma, and cut by sword light. In any case, none of their corpses were intact. This scene was too shocking. It scared the remaining inner clan disciples so much that they turned around and fled. They had originally stayed to block Ling Xiao for Feitian, but now they realized that Ling Xiao's horror had long exceeded their expectations. Although they wanted the rewards, their lives were more important. A group of delicate flowers in a greenhouse. The 8 Immortals Mountains model will collapse sooner or later. Ling Xiao looked down on the 8 Immortals Mountains' way of cultivating talents. Talents with real potential were buried and even assassinated. Instead, they left behind those useless people with power and influence. It really made people sigh. And Feitian thought that the encirclement was impregnable, but it collapsed in an instant. Ling Xiao executed Wolf, traversing 1,000 li, and fled forward. He was extremely fast. In an instant, he saw Feitian, who was fighting with the prisoners in front of him. When he saw Ling Xiao, Feitian was obviously shocked. A group of useless people. You can't even block one person. It was no wonder that Fei Tian was angry. He had already promised a handsome reward, but in the end his plan, which he thought was perfect, had failed miserably. It had no effect at all. It had only allowed him to get a few extermination stones before Ling Xiao. If that's the case, I can only do it myself. But before that, I have to get 10 extermination stones first. Then it's time to deal with you. Although Fei Tian was very unhappy, he still had to prioritize the matter at hand. He knew what his most important task was. It was definitely not to fight Ling Xiao. First, he had to get the extermination stones, then kill Ling Xiao. Anyway, he was now in the lead. He did not believe that Ling Xiao could get the extermination stones before him. However, Ling Xiao's actions surprised him. Ling Xiao did not hunt the prisoners at all. Instead, he kept rushing forward, as if he did not care about the extermination stones at all. What is that kid doing? Fei Tian did not understand. The rest of the people who were scared out of their wits by Ling Xiao did not understand either. Quickly chase after him. If he doesn't die, you'll die. Remember, that kid just killed so many people. He must be exhausted. If you attack him now, you can definitely kill him easily. Fei Tian was trying to scare and persuade them. Finally, the remaining 21 people gritted their teeth and chased after him. Seeing the people chasing after him, Ling Xiao suddenly smiled. He stopped in the tunnel. Originally, I wanted to kill Fei Tian directly and get the 10 extermination stones from him. But you've delivered yourselves to me. Just nice. These 21 young warriors were intercepted by the prisoners in the process. It was naturally easier for them to kill the prisoners when they joined forces. Chapter 2465. As long as Ling Xiao could kill all of them, he would have enough Sin extermination stones. How dare you come? It seems like you're not afraid of death. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. His body entered the demonic tyrant blood dragon martial soul transformation. When the 21 people got close, he suddenly used the secret technique of the demonic tyrant blood dragon martial soul transformation. Demonic dragon blood curse. In that instant, the 21 people felt their bodies stiffen. Then their chi and blood surged. It was extremely uncomfortable. Those who were weaker fell to the ground and fainted. Those who were stronger also lost control of their internal energy for a short period of time. In such a situation, death was the only way out for them on the battlefield. Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't give them a way out. His body instantly transformed into the Black Wolf General. Wolf Pack kill. 21 wolf shadows rushed out and knocked the 21 martial artists to the ground. More than 10 of them died on the spot. A few of them were killed by the prisoners after they fell to the ground. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Fei Tian's face became extremely ugly. Fei Tian was very clear about the strength of these 31 warriors. Among them, there were a few whose cultivation was only slightly inferior to his own. They were much stronger than Ling Xiao. How could this be? How could they be killed in an instant? Of course, Fei Tian did not know that Ling Xiao's demonic dragon blood curse had a time limit. Basically, it could only be used once every hour. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would have an even easier time challenging martial artists of a higher rank. Fortunately, I'm a carp that leaped over the dragon's gate. I'm different from those trash. With the special secret technique of the Dark Tribe and the sword that father gave me, I must kill him. This Ling Xiao, if the rumors were true, must not be allowed to live. If he continued to live, he would really become a huge threat to him. At this time, Fei Tian had already collected 10 Sin extermination stones. He was about to go to the Shadow Black Gourd when he saw that Ling Xiao had disappeared. Ling Xiao also wanted to kill Fei Tian. However, after thinking about it, obtaining the Shadow Black Gourd was more important. It would be a pity if he lost the opportunity to study it because of Fei Tian. Seeing Ling Xiao disappear, Fei Tian spat out a mouthful of saliva and hurriedly chased after him. He could not lose. He could not lose. Otherwise, not only would he lose the right to study of the Shadow Black Gourd, but he would also lose face. The battle had been going on for the Shadow Black Gourd. In the depths of the Heaven's sacrificial altar, several figures appeared. The Dark Elder, Patriarch, Chief Elder, and even Evernight Formless were present. That Elder and Dark Knight Formless seemed to be injured. They must have gone through a great battle. Dark Knight Formless crossed his arms and stood there coldly. Although there was no special expression on his face, his heart was filled with emotions. If it weren't for the mysterious expert's help, he would have had no choice but to flee. Calm. But he also knew how terrifying Lin Yuetian was. Lin Yuetian was only a young martial artist. Although he was a reincarnated martial artist, he was not even 20 years old. His cultivation was already at his level. This was Ling Xiao's most terrifying opponent in the future. He was worried about Ling Xiao's safety. On the other side, the Dark Elder was thinking about the two mysterious masters. The two mysterious experts were actually both women. Once they made their move, they actually possessed a terrifying strength that was not the slightest bit inferior to Dark Knight Formless. Who was the martial artist behind them? Ling Xiao. Who was this kid? How could he have such a powerful martial artist protecting him? These people were waiting here for the martial artist who could reach the Shadow Black Gourd within the specified time. Whoever arrived first in the allotted time would have the right to use the Umbra Black Gourd and comprehend it. Elder, look at the time. It should be about time, right? Nightwalker's voice snapped the Dark Elder out of his thoughts. Yes, soon. I wonder who will be the first to arrive here? The Dark Tribe Elder said with a nod. Who else could it be? Not Heaven, of course. Hidden Flower smiled. With Not Heaven's strength and intelligence, it will be easy for him to win. What she didn't say was that if the plan had gone smoothly, Ling Xiao would have been a corpse by now. If Ling Xiao died and Infatian obtained the Shadow Black Gourd, that would be the best outcome for her. Others didn't know, but she hated Ling Xiao to the core. He had disrespected her time and time again. She would be unhappy if he didn't die. Yi Wuxing was thinking, if Not Heaven kills Ling Xiao, it will be the same as eliminating his inner demons. His martial path will be smoother from now on. Ever since Infatian was injured by Ling Xiao had become an untouchable demon in Infatian's heart. He was disturbed by this person and couldn't cultivate in peace. It's not certain who will take first place. Elder Hidden Flowers, words are a little too early. No Light in the Night was naturally more optimistic about Ling Xiao. Although Ling Xiao refused to acknowledge him as his foster father, the Dark Family and the Dark Family were two factions that fought openly and secretly. As long as Ling Xiao won, it would be equivalent to slapping the Dark Family in the face on behalf of the Dark Family. Elder Wu Guang, are you joking? A mere Ling Xiao, not to mention dealing with Not Heaven. Even if it was someone else, he wouldn't be able to pass. Dark Gold sneered. Have you forgotten that you were beaten up so quickly? No Light in the Night wouldn't give Dark Gold any face. That's because that kid relied on someone else's help. Dark Gold was most indignant about being beaten up by Ling Xiao. He was clearly stronger than Ling Xiao, but he was beaten up by Ling Xiao because he underestimated him. This was simply a stain on his reputation. Humph. When Not Heaven appears later, Elder Wu Guang, you won't be able to keep your old face. Dark Gold snorted and looked in that direction. Someone's coming. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distant tunnel. Everyone looked in that direction. What? It's actually him. Dark Gold was dumbfounded. This was because the person who appeared in the tunnel was none other than Ling Xiao. It was Ling Xiao, the person he looked down on. At this moment, Ling Xiao was like lightning. He turned into a wolf shadow and instantly arrived in front of the Shadow Black Gourd. Ha 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 ha. This kid obtained wolf travels 1,000 miles from the Hall of Good and Evil. I thought he wouldn't be able to learn it. I didn't expect him to be so proficient in the first move. He must have reached great perfection. No Light in the Night looked at Dark Knight and Hidden Flower proudly and laughed. It turned out that Ling Xiao had won. At this moment, there was still no sign of not heaven. What's wrong with not heaven? Nightwalker immediately tensed up. Chapter 2466. Thief, what did you do to Fei Tian? Nightwalker didn't even care about the patriarch's authority as he roared at Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao glanced at Nightwalker, then at Nightwalker, who was safe and sound. He let out a sigh of relief. His mood lightened. He said contemptuously, before entering the heaven altar, the patriarch's precious son said that he wanted to make me disappear. It's a pity that your stupid son doesn't have that ability. How dare you? How dare you speak to the patriarch like that? Dark Gold was humiliated by Ling Xiao's actions. He was extremely unhappy. If Nightwalker wasn't here, he would have gone up and killed Ling Xiao. How dare you? The patriarch and grand elder are all here. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Ling Xiao even dared to talk back to Dark Flower and Nightwalker, let alone Dark Gold. When Dark Gold heard this, he was furious. He wanted to shout again, but at that moment, another person finally appeared in front of everyone. Fei Tian. Nightwalker finally let out a sigh of relief when he saw Fei Tian. Although he was puzzled that the two of them hadn't fought in the tunnel, he didn't care anymore when he saw that his son was safe. Ling Xiao, you bastard, stop right there. You killed so many people. Do you think no one will know? And Fei Tian was very unhappy that Ling Xiao had surpassed him. So, as soon as he appeared, he shouted that Ling Xiao had killed the other inner disciples. What? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Dark Flower was even ready to attack Ling Xiao. What a joke. Do you really think the patriarchs will believe such a lie? Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't admit that he had killed so many people. Although the patriarch had said that he could kill, what if this old man forgot what he said in a fit of anger? After all, only the prisoners and Fei Tian had seen him kill during the battle. He had already killed those prisoners. So, only Fei Tian was left. If Fei Tian said that he had killed people, then he would say that Fei Tian had killed people. Dead people tell no tales. How is it a joke? Fei Tian had already arrived beside the shadow black gourd and questioned. With my strength, I killed those 31 people, and I actually arrived before you. Do you think anyone will believe that? I feel that those people were killed by you. Only someone familiar with them would make them let their guard down. Ling Xiao sneered. You're talking nonsense. Why would I want to kill them? Fei Tian said furiously, It's very simple. You asked them to stop me, but I used my movement technique to escape. You weren't satisfied, so you naturally took action. Young Master Fei Tian, you are known for your cruelty. Do you know how many warriors have died at your hands? You're slandering me. Being attacked by Ling Xiao, Fei Tian was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. However, every word Ling Xiao said was reasonable, and he simply couldn't refute it. That's enough. This old man has already said that killing is allowed in the competition. Since there are only 2 of you left, the 2 of you will decide who will have the Umbra Black Gourd. The Dark Tribe elder suddenly said loudly. Ling Xiao smiled to himself. This was in line with his intentions. Although this elder had the intention of protecting Fei Tian, he was actually helping Ling Xiao. Fei Tian was so angry that his chest was so tight that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Only then did he feel much better. Ling Xiao, this young master admires your sharp tongue. However, there can only be one winner in this competition. Come, let's fight to the death. Fei Tian roared. Elder, this doesn't seem fair. Ling Xiao was the one who arrived first. Logically speaking, the Umbra Black Gourd should belong to Ling Xiao. There's no need for a duel. No Light in the Night frowned. Didn't this old man say that the rules have changed? The Dark Tribe elder said without batting an eyelid. This old man didn't even blush when he lied. Fine, you made the rules. You have the final say. No Light in the Night felt helpless. Although he was also very strong, he was still inferior to this elder. However, he didn't understand why Yi Wanxiang didn't say anything. You don't have to look at me. Whether it's a duel or not, Ling Xiao will win. So I don't have to say anything. Yi Wanxiang saw no light in the knight's doubt and explained. Haha, Yi Wanxiang, you're quite confident. However, don't forget that our Feitian's cultivation has already broken through to the early stage of the first transformation, fourth layer of hell. He also has the Dark Tribe's special secret technique and the Black Gold Demon's Lair sword. Without help, Ling Xiao is just a clown. It's possible to escape by relying on your movement technique. But what's the point of having a powerful movement technique? Hidden Flower sneered at Yi Wanxiang. She only dared to speak to Yi Wanxiang like this because the elder was here. Movement techniques are not for escaping. Yi Wanxiang said indifferently. In fact, movement techniques were first created. They were originally used to complement martial skills in battle. It was a pity that many people had forgotten the true meaning of movement techniques. They thought that they were used to escape. They didn't know that movement techniques were the most powerful when used in battle. Yes. We don't know as much as the Grand Elder, but there's a huge difference in their cultivation. I'm afraid that kid will have to cultivate for a few more years to defeat Feitian. Dark Gold mocked. Junior, you're asking for a beating. Yi Wanxiang's temper wasn't as good as before. It was fine if Hidden Flower scolded him. After all, they were of the same generation. He even had to call Hidden Flower cousin. However, Dark Gold was nothing. With a single slap, he sent Dark Gold flying. Remember, you don't have the right to speak here. If you speak any more nonsense, get out. Yi Wanxiang was incomparably domineering. Elder, are you not going to do anything? Hidden Flower was anxious. Dark Gold was her biological son and was much closer to her than in Feitian. How could she tolerate being beaten by Yi Wanxiang? His mouth is cheap. He deserves to be beaten. The Dark Tribe Elder had just suffered a loss at Yi Wanxiang's hands. Naturally, he wouldn't go against Yi Wanxiang now. Hearing this, Hidden Flower and Dark Gold could only suppress their anger. There was nothing they could do. Yi Wanxiang, I know you're still brooding over what happened back then. However, you're still a member of the Dark Tribe. In the future, you should know your limits. After teaching Hidden Flower and Dark Gold a lesson, the elder glanced at Yi Wanxiang and said something inexplicable. Only a few of the people present knew what these words meant. Old man, shut up. It's not up to you to teach me what to do. I used to respect you, but my son was killed. Even now, I don't know who the murderer is. That's all for today. Let me remind you that Ling Xiao is the successor I've chosen. It doesn't matter if he denies me as his master or recognizes me as his foster father. I'll treat him as my own. Whoever dares to touch him will be my enemy. I won't let them go. Chapter 2467. This is crazy. I don't know what's so good about Ling Xiao that Yi Yezi is so crazy about. An Yexing thought to himself, but it doesn't matter. That kid will die soon. Not Tian won't let him off. Yi Yezi, you wouldn't ruin this battle for that kid, right? You guys are back? Shan Dian and the butterfly lady had finally returned to his body after helping Yi Yezi. The butterfly lady had fallen into a deep slumber because she had exhausted too much energy. Shan Dian also looked a little tired. He probably wouldn't be able to continue fighting for some time. Master, Lin Yuetian is too scary. If we hadn't launched a sneak attack, we wouldn't have been able to hurt him. You have to be careful. Shan Dian didn't mention the Dark Tribe Elder. Instead, he mentioned Lin Yuetian. It seemed that this rumored peerless genius, the young master of the 8 Immortals Mountain, was really in existence that made people fear him. I got it. Ling Xiao nodded. He would never overestimate anyone, nor would he underestimate anyone. If Shan Dian said that Lin Yuetian was scary, then Lin Yuetian had to be very scary. Master, I will go and rest too. Shan Dian fell into a deep slumber after saying what he wanted to say. Only deep sleep could allow him to recover faster. Ling Xiao, you must obtain this Shadow Black Gourd. If I'm not wrong, the Shadow Black Gourd and the Shadow Black Gourd should be a set. Only by combining the two will you be able to obtain the treasure within. The Yuan Venerate's voice suddenly rang out in Ling Xiao's mind. Really? It can't be wrong. I've been studying the dark black sword immortal diagram for a period of time, but I couldn't make any progress. However, when you approached the dark shadow black gourd, you suddenly discovered that the diagram produced some kind of reaction. The Yuan Venerate replied, "All right, then I must obtain this shadow black gourd." Ling Xiao was delighted. He hadn't been too sure what the shadow black gourd diagram was before. Perhaps the secret was about to be revealed. "Have you guys finished discussing? If you don't allow a duel, then I'll take it." Ling Xiao glanced at the Dark Ones. Although the elder had changed the rules of this battle, he didn't care. Taking care of Fei Tian was exactly what he wanted. It was a pity that Fei Tian could not be killed in front of so many people. Otherwise, the clan elder would not let the matter rest. "Let's duel. Whoever wins will get the dark shadow black gourd," the elder of the dark race shouted. All right. Hearing this, Ling Xiao nodded his head, and Fei Tian felt as if he was overjoyed. Originally, he should have already lost, but now he had another chance. "Ling Xiao, oh Ling Xiao, I have to admit that your movement technique is exquisite. But if you want to defeat me with just your movement technique, I will make you regret it." And Fei Tian sneered in his heart. In his opinion, as long as he could avoid Ling Xiao's strange secret technique, he didn't have to worry about anything else. You're a frog at the bottom of a well. You only reached the early stage of the 4th layer of hell by relying on others. What ability do you have to make me afraid? Ling Xiao looked at Fei Tian disdainfully. Today's Fei Tian was not even worth mentioning in his eyes. If he hadn't wanted to hide his strength in front of those people, he could have killed Fei Tian in 3 moves. Who's the frog at the bottom of the well? Let's see who's the frog at the bottom of the well. Die! After saying that, Fei Tian suddenly burst out his powerful aura at the early stage of the 4th layer of hell and charged at Ling Xiao. The difference between the 4th layer of hell and the 3rd layer of hell is huge. Even if Ling Xiao is invincible in the 3rd layer of hell, he is no match for Fei Tian. Moreover, Ling Xiao's cultivation may not be invincible in the 3rd layer of hell. Hidden Flower couldn't help but say coldly as he watched the battle begin. This time, Dark Knight Formless did not say anything. There was no point in saying that. Anyway, among these people, no one else had confidence in Ling Xiao other than him. Ling Xiao stood there and looked coldly at Fei Tian, who was charging at him. When Fei Tian rushed over, his figure was faintly discernible in the void. This was probably the effect of the dark shadow martial soul, which made it impossible for others to grasp his exact position. Every time he appeared, he would be in a different place, and there was no pattern to it. For an ordinary person, they would have been nervous and panicked at this point. This was because an unpredictable enemy was the scariest. However, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry. Although Fei Tian's movements were strange, he was able to deal with them by remaining unchanged. Dark Shadow, Demonic Seal. While he was charging, Fei Tian condensed a terrifying palm print in his hand. Within the palm print, a hideous skull vaguely appeared, exuding a terrifying and eerie aura. It charged at Ling Xiao. This demonic seal could disappear and reappear as Fei Tian moved. "Die, ignorant boy!" The voice seemed to come from all directions, making it impossible to determine its exact location. The terrifying demonic seal and Fei Tian's figure had disappeared. When Fei Tian reappeared, he was only 2 to 3 meters away from Ling Xiao. What an insignificant trick! Ling Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. Although his cultivation had not broken through, he was still at the peak of the 3rd level of hell of the Yinyang realm. However, with the power of a beast god martial artist, he could be on par with Fei Tian. This did not include his advanced combat constitution and the terrifying tyrannical martial soul. Through the tempering of many battles, Ling Xiao was gradually able to silently unleash the tyrant martial spirit in battle. Although he could not fully utilize it, The advantage was that he could use the tyrannical martial soul without being detected. Of course, their strength was only equal in terms of the level of their internal strength. In terms of combat experience and soul power, and Fei Tian could not catch up with him. As for martial skills, and Fei Tian should have mastered an outstanding high-grade jade martial skill. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, had mastered a high-grade jade martial skill. In terms of quality, and Fei Tian's martial skill was slightly inferior. However, Ling Xiao's mastery of every martial skill was better than in Fei Tian's. As for body movement, Ling Xiao had mastered the fourth move of the 1,000-mile wolf. The first 3 moves had been cultivated to the perfection stage. The fourth move had also been cultivated to the phenomenal realm. This was definitely a miracle in the history of the 1,000-mile wolf. In short, he was stronger than in Fei Tian by more than a little. Suddenly, and Fei Tian's figure appeared, and the terrifying demonic seal was already inches away from Ling Xiao. "Humph, that boy is finished." Hidden Flower snorted. "He can't even react at such a close distance. He's really weak." Chapter 2468. At this moment, Dark Gold felt that he had overestimated Ling Xiao. After all this time, this guy was not that great after all. However, in the next moment, his jaw dropped. A shocking scene appeared in front of him. Ling Xiao's figure disappeared. Just like that, he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. When he reappeared, he was already behind in Fei Tian. However, and Fei Tian was indeed more powerful than the average person. The moment Ling Xiao disappeared, he reacted. The dark shadow demonic seal blasted behind him. Boom! The 2 palms collided, causing the tunnel to shake. A strong gust of wind shot out in all directions. The spectators could feel the strength of the wind. However, when the wind reached the dark shadow gourd, it strangely disappeared. Of course, no one noticed this because everyone's attention was focused on the battle. Since Ling Xiao only used ordinary palm energy, he was naturally at a disadvantage. He retreated more than 10 steps before he could regain his footing. However, his movements were quite dashing. After all, his movement technique was there. It would be a little difficult to make him look battered and exhausted. As for Fei Tian, he only retreated 2 or 3 steps. In this collision, he obviously had the upper hand, and the advantage was not small. So what if his movement technique is good? He's not as good as Not Heaven. This Ling Xiao is still going to lose. Dark Gold glanced at Dark Knight Formless and sneered. "Are you an idiot? You're one of the 3 geniuses of the Dark Tribe. Can't you see this?" Ling Xiao didn't even use any martial skills, but Not Heaven used a high-tier jade grade martial skill, the Dark Shadow Demonic Seal. Now that neither side is at a disadvantage, who do you think is stronger? Dark Gold did not say anything, but No Light in the Night scolded Dark Gold. The others did not refute. This was because the experts could see that No Light in the Night was telling the truth. The most troublesome thing was that the movement technique Ling Xiao used was only the first form of the 1,000-mile wolf, but it was already difficult for Fei Tian to deal with. It's just an ordinary palm energy, but it's so powerful in the hands of this kid. It seemed like this Ling Xiao was really a martial arts genius. No wonder Wukong wanted to take him in as his godson. Speaking of which, this old man is starting to like this kid. The Dark Race elder had heard rumors about Ling Xiao, and some people had added fuel to the fire. He didn't like Ling Xiao at all. He had always thought that Ling Xiao was only able to run amok because of the invisible protection of the night. But from the looks of it now, that didn't seem to be the case. Elder, don't you think you've gone too far? When Ling Xiao used his movement technique, he was unable to use any martial skills. Not Heaven didn't understand that movement technique, so he was almost at a disadvantage. But that might not be the case after this. Nightwalker was somewhat unconvinced. The Dark Folk elder chuckled, but didn't say anything. Instead, he continued to watch the battle unfold. Ling Xiao stood there, calmly looking at his fists. He smiled slightly and said, And Fei Tian, if this is your so-called strongest strength, then it's really too weak. After saying that, he suddenly transformed into his black wolf, general martial soul. The lone wolf walks 1,000 miles. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to Fei Tian. Then a long sword appeared in his hand, and he used the meteor sword technique, one move after another. By the time he reached the fourth move, Fei Tian was already in a very sorry state. Although he wasn't injured, his clothes were already in tatters. This guy, he really can use martial skills at the same time as his movement technique. Nightwalker was dumbfounded. Ling Xiao's series of attacks seemed to be aimed at slapping him in the face. And Fei Tian suddenly roared, and suddenly his body began to change. The dark shadow martial soul behind him disappeared, as if it had merged into his body. His eyes were a strange black color, and even the whites of his eyes were black. Not only that, but a pair of bat wings grew out of his back. A pair of strange horns grew out of the top of his head. Although the other parts of his body didn't change much, there was no doubt that this was a special secret technique of the Dark Tribe. The Sand Tribe has the Sand Witcher, and the Dark Tribe also has the Shadow Witcher. To be honest, I'm really surprised that you can hurt me. However, this is the end of it. With your little strength, you're nothing in front of me. Next, I'll let you know what it means to be afraid. You talk too much. Ling Xiao suddenly stabbed out with his sword, and a terrifying sword light blasted Fei Tian, who was in the middle of his transformation, away. Despicable! How could you sneak attack him? Outside the arena, people started to curse. Nonsense! This is a battle, not a game. Do I have to wait for him to finish his transformation? Ling Xiao said disdainfully. Ling Xiao, you're courting death. In the distance, Fei Tian's transformation was even more obvious. Other than his right hand, which still looked like a human, the rest of his body had turned into a strange monster. The sharp claws and sharp teeth indicated that this guy was almost inhuman. You're really tough. Ling Xiao couldn't help but frown when he saw that Fei Tian only had a little bit of blood at the corner of his mouth. He had just used the fifth form of the meteor sword skill, the fall of heaven and earth. It had only caused such an effect. It seemed that the Shadow Witcher was similar to the Sand Witcher. They both had extremely strong defense. It wouldn't be easy to deal with them. However, after transforming, Fei Tian still didn't attack. This was because it wasn't over yet. The reason why his right hand didn't transform was because he needed to use a weapon. He had just taken out his weapon from his storage ring. It was a strange, long sword that was completely black. It was neither gold nor jade, and it exuded a strong, murderous aura that made people feel pressured. Wisps of black smoke rose from it, and there seemed to be black flames dancing on the blade. Is this a deity-grade spiritual weapon? Ling Xiao said with a frown. Ha ha ha, you have a good eye. That's right, this is a deity-grade spiritual weapon, second only to the Shadow Black Gourd. Its name is Black Qilin. I'm afraid a poor kid like you has never seen such a powerful weapon in your entire life. In the entire 8 Immortal Mountain, other than the sword from the Sword Tribe, there's no other weapon stronger than this Black Qilin sword. I could have easily killed you if I had entered the Shadow Witcher state. However, in order to make you despair, I've decided to use this Black Qilin sword. Ling Xiao looked at his opponent coldly, and Fei Tian's actions were within his expectations. However, even if he had expected it, he wasn't sure if he could deal with Fei Tian. After all, he didn't have such a powerful weapon. To a martial artist, a powerful weapon would greatly increase their combat power. This was also the reason why Ling Xiao wanted the sword from the Sword Tribe. However, it wasn't easy to get the sword from the Sword Tribe. It would be good if he could get his hands on Fei Tian's Black Qilin sword. Chapter 2469. With the Shadow Witcher and the Black Qilin sword, Fei Tian's strength had increased tremendously. He was close to the middle stage of the 4th level of hell, and Fei Tian was in high spirits. He did not want to embarrass himself in front of the Dark Tribe's higher-ups. The tribe leader was his father, and the rest of the higher-ups supported him. If he lost to Ling Xiao in front of them, he would be too ashamed to face them. Ling Xiao could feel that Fei Tian's strength had increased tremendously. However, his expression did not change. His opponent must have used all his strength. He had not used all his strength yet. Everyone thought that he had only learned the first move of the wolf galloping 1,000 miles because he had only used the first move in front of them. Go to hell, kid. When you reach the netherworld, remember that I and Fei Tian am the one who will kill you. Roar, Black Qilin. As his voice rang out, Ling Xiao saw the sword in Fei Tian's hand turn into a long black snake. The snake was covered in black scales and spat out its tongue ferociously. It was extremely vicious. Black Qilin strangle. Another voice rang out. The strange black snake turned into more than 10 snakes and pounced on Ling Xiao from different directions. Ling Xiao knew that each of the black snakes was a terrifying sword chi. The power was not inferior to Fei Tian's full-strength attack. Logically speaking, this should not be the case. The more scattered the sword chi was, the weaker each attack would be. However, because of the Black Qilin sword, each of the sword chi was at full strength and would not be weakened. This was terrifying. A celestial-grade spiritual weapon is indeed terrifying. It seems that I have to reveal more of my strength. Ling Xiao was not a stubborn person. He would not put himself in danger just to hide his strength. If necessary, he would even reveal his Sky Tyrant martial soul and any of his trump cards. After all, the most important thing was to survive. If he was dead, there was no point in keeping so many secrets. Hee, Ling Xiao is dead meat. Dark Gold revealed a mocking smile. He didn't believe that the combination of the Shadow Witcher and the Black Qilin sword wouldn't be able to take Ling Xiao's life. If this still couldn't kill Ling Xiao, and Fei Tian would be too useless. Although Dark Flower, Dark Nightwalker, and the others weren't as emotional as Dark Gold, they were still very happy to see Ling Xiao being defeated and almost finished. It's too early for you to celebrate. Dark Knight Formless sneered, but didn't explain anything. As for Ling Xiao, even he did not fully understand him. The energy that erupted from this young body was simply too amazing. What a joke! What else can he do? Dark Gold pursed his lips. However, he was soon unable to maintain his contemptuous and mocking expression. Those who were waiting to see Ling Xiao make a fool of himself and gloat over his misfortune were shocked to find that Ling Xiao's figure gradually became dim at that moment. A wolf can travel 1,000 miles? Humph! With your aptitude, the wolf can travel 1,000 miles at most until you reach the level of a twin wolf. Even if you turn into 2 wolf shadows, you'll still die without a doubt, unless you're confident that you can dodge all my attacks. And Fei Tian looked at Ling Xiao contemptuously. He didn't believe that Ling Xiao could cultivate the wolf to a high level. You don't have to dodge all of them. You only have a total of 18 sword chis. I admit that if you meet force with force, you won't be able to avoid injury. However, as long as you avoid 9 of them, the remaining 9 will be easy. Ling Xiao smiled, and then, under everyone's shocked gaze, his figure turned into 9. 9 wolf shadows leaped out. This was the 3rd form of the wolf pack attack. The number of wolf shadows that could be released from wolf pack attack would increase according to the level of mastery. At most, when cultivated to the perfection stage, one could release 81 shadows at once. Of course, these shadows were all illusions and couldn't be used to attack. They could only be used to dodge the enemy's attacks. The more wolf shadows there were, the safer the body would be. 9 wolf shadows were naturally able to block the 9 sword chis. The remaining 9 sword chis were repelled by Ling Xiao's Doomsday Sword. The sword in his hand also shattered at the same time. A mortal-grade spiritual weapon was still too weak against an immortal-grade spiritual weapon. However, it didn't matter. Ling Xiao still had a lot of mortal-grade spiritual weapon swords in his storage ring. 9 wolf shadows. How could this guy cultivate the third form of the wolf to the greater mastery level? How long has he been cultivating it? Shock. Intense shock. It wasn't just Ling Zhao's opponent and Fei Tian. Even the onlookers at the side were shocked by Ling Zhao's amazing movement skills. In just half a month's time, Ling Zhao was actually able to cultivate the third move of the 1,000-mile wolf. Moreover, it was at the great accomplishment level. Didn't this mean that this guy could be considered the most powerful genius in the history of the Eight Immortals Mountain? If there was anyone who could compete with Ling Zhao, it would be Ling Yan and Lin Yuetian. Elder, did you see that? Now do you understand why I had to chase after this brat and take him in as my adopted son? He's a genius through and through. No Light in the Night said excitedly, "Humph, it doesn't matter if he's a genius or not. It's all over now." Not Heaven had only used one move, and he had already used his strongest movement technique. What was he going to rely on to fight Not Heaven next? He's still going to die. And Jean snorted coldly. "I'm not going to waste my breath on a blind kid like you. Continue watching. You'll learn a lot." No Light in the Night sneered and continued watching the battlefield. And Fei Tian and Jean had the same thought. If you can dodge most of the attacks with one move, what about two moves? You can dodge 18 sword chis, but what about 24? What would you do? In fact, he didn't use all his strength just now. He was afraid that the Shadow Hunter demon would control his mind, but he didn't care anymore. Even if he turned into a demon, the Elder was here to stop him from doing something stupid. His aura continued to rise. A terrifying black aura was released from his body. His eyes were almost blurred, and he couldn't see what was in front of him. "No, I'm going to kill Ling Zhao with my own hands. I won't let you do it." And Fei Tian roared. He didn't want the Shadow Hunter demon to do it. He wanted to kill Ling Zhao with his own hands. Only then could he vent his anger and get rid of the demon in his heart. 24 black sword chis broke through the air. They turned into 20 black snakes. It was terrifying. It was obvious that Fei Tian was using a lot of effort to use such a move. He even spat out a small mouthful of blood. But at least he managed to release the attack. Haven't you heard of the saying, "Virtue is 1 foot tall, and the devil is 10 feet tall"? You can increase your strength, but I can't. Ling Zhao's aura began to rise again. The advanced lightning battle form was released. Crazy lightning flowed on the Black Wolf General Transformation. Chapter 2470. Ling Zhao, whose combat strength had increased, was able to take on 12 rays of sword chi instead of 9. Wolf Pack Attack of 1,000 li. Great perfection. Wolf Pack Attack of 1,000 li at great perfection could release 12 shadows of wolves at the same time, while easily dodging the 12 rays of sword chi. Ling Zhao once again used the Doomsday move of the Meteor Sword technique and easily dissolved the remaining 12 rays of sword chi. A cold smile hung on Ling Zhao's face, because he saw in Fei Tian's sorry state. Forcefully channeling 20 rays of sword chi had already caused Fei Tian's face to turn pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that Fei Tian's strength was insufficient, yet he forcefully channeled sword chi. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. "Ah, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." And Fei Tian's aura was still rising crazily. Seeing this, a night walker panicked. "Stop, Fei Tian. If this continues, you'll die first." I don't care. I don't believe that I can't kill him." And Fei Tian was completely controlled by the Shadow Hunter demon. The black Qilin sword had also merged into his body. It was like a long poisonous needle that pointed at Ling Zhao. He, stupid little guy. Just admit defeat. You had to force Fei Tian to let me out. You're dead meat. The Shadow Hunter demon's voice was sharp and piercing. His combat strength had almost reached the middle stage of the 4th level of Hell of the Yin-Yang realm. Although his cultivation was not there, his combat strength was there. "Die, you pathetic little brat." Black Qilin Strangle. 48 rays of sword chi. From 18 rays of sword chi to 24 rays of sword chi, then to 48 rays of sword chi. Each attack was more terrifying than the previous one, and this time he was using the combat strength of the middle stage of the 4th level of hell. Ling Xiao was even more defenseless. Even if Fei Tian wins, it's an unfair victory. No Light in the Night said unhappily. Although it's unfair to give my consciousness to the Shadow Hunter Demon, the Shadow Hunter Demon is a special, secret technique of the Dark Tribe. Why can't I use it? Hidden Flower said disdainfully. But if he uses the Shadow Hunter Demon and still loses, then that would be a huge loss of face. Dark Knight Formless said calmly. Impossible, Night Walker said sternly. Nothing is impossible. Didn't you see how Ling Xiao defeated the Sandwitcher in the Sword Tribe? Dark Knight's formless tone was still indifferent. In his opinion, although Shadow Witchers could increase their combat strength, they would lose their judgment and combat skills as a warrior. This would give Ling Xiao a chance to take advantage of it. Humph. I admit that Ling Xiao has some skills, but he has already perfected the wolf pack attack. Do you think he can still cultivate it to the perfection stage? In the history of our 8 Immortals Mountain, no one has ever been able to cultivate this technique to the stage of perfection, because the difference between the transcendent state and the perfected state is too great. Hidden Flower snorted coldly. Even now, she had to admit that Ling Xiao was terrifying, but she still couldn't believe that Ling Xiao could defeat the Shadow Hunter Demon. After all, Shaheen's cultivation was much weaker than in Fatian's. Naturally, the Shadow Hunter Demon was much weaker. The difficulty of cultivating the wolf pack 1,000 miles was not a secret in the 8 Immortals Mountain. Therefore, very few disciples of the 8 Immortals Mountain were willing to cultivate this technique. Even if they wanted to cultivate it, they would give up halfway because they couldn't make any progress. Therefore, everyone present was shocked. Even the Dark Tribe Elder was very surprised. He felt that he had overestimated Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao's talent still surprised him. Can a lot of sword chi really hurt people? Ling Xiao looked at the Shadow Hunter Demon in disdain. No matter how powerful an attack was, even if it could destroy heaven and earth, if it couldn't hit its target, then it would be meaningless. If it was meaningful, then it would be a waste of one's internal strength. Hee, stupid little guy, you don't understand at all. The sword chi that I use is completely different from that idiot and Fatian's. The Shadow Hunter Demon sneered. 48 sword chi had been condensed. Just as he had said, the sword chis were no longer black snakes. Instead, they had transformed into ferocious demons. The power of each strand of sword chi increased. If Ling Xiao's prediction was correct, his speed would also be greatly increased. Everyone stared at Ling Xiao. This was because they all wanted to know how Ling Xiao would dodge such an attack this time. That was 48 sword chi. It was like the sword chi of a martial artist at the middle stage of the 4th transformation of the Yin-Yang realm. Idiot! Ling Xiao looked at his opponent with disdain. He admitted that the power of this attack was indeed terrifying. But which idiot was it that said that blindly strong attacks were good? In a battle, being able to use different powers to perform different moves was the real power. Today, I'll let you see what real combat skills are. You look strong, but you're actually stupid. Let alone one. Even if 10 of you came, I wouldn't care. He smiled coldly, and his body began to split. They turned into shadows of wolves. There were 81 wolf shadows in total. Impossible. That was what everyone thought. It was because only by cultivating the wolf pack attack to the perfection of martial arts could one perform 81 wolf shadows. Once it reached the perfection of martial arts, these wolf shadows would have a new effect. It could be used together with the wolf pack attack, so that the wolf pack attack could be performed without a long interval. He actually cultivated this move to the perfection of martial arts. This is simply inconceivable. Even the Dark Tribe Elder was shocked. This kid had done something that no one had ever done before. If this wasn't a genius, then who was worthy of the title? How is this possible? How is this possible? Hidden Flower looked at the scene in a daze. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was so big that one could stuff a big eggplant in it. He thought about how he had confidently said that Ling Xiao couldn't cultivate to the perfection of martial arts. This was like being slapped in the face, and his face turned red. Dark Gold, Dark Tribe, and Dark Knight Wuzuan's expressions became serious. They knew that after this battle, Ling Xiao would replace in Fei Tian as one of the four great geniuses. He would become the person who could threaten their position. They had never thought highly of Ling Xiao. If there was any fear of Ling Xiao, it was because of the person behind Ling Xiao. But today they really felt a chill down their spines because of Ling Xiao. It seems that this old man is really old, and my eyes are not good. I almost misjudged such a genius. I'm afraid that only Lin Yuetian can compare to him. The Dark Tribe elder thought about it and felt that it was unwise to deal with Dark Knight Wuzuan. Chapter 2471. What a pity. Now, it's even more impossible for me to accept him as my godson. No Light in the Night sighed helplessly. He knew that the more outstanding Ling Xiao's performance was, the less likely it was for him to accept him as his godson. As for Dark Knight Formless, he didn't think too much about it, seeing that the disciple he had risked his life to protect was so outstanding. He only had a smile on his face. Not only did the 81 wolf shadows easily dodge the 48 sword auras, but they also dodged the attack. What was even more terrifying was that the remaining 33 wolf shadows directly pounced on the Shadow Witcher. The Shadow Witcher was like a sandbag that was constantly being hit. He kept retreating. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself, let alone counterattack. It's time to end this. Ling Xiao raised the long sword in his hand and coldly pointed it at the Shadow Witcher. Sword of Eastern Purple Qi. One sword to the west. Terrifying purple qi billowed like a purple devil as it attacked the Shadow Witcher. At this moment, the Shadow Witcher was being hit by the 33 wolf shadows until he couldn't do anything. How could he block Ling Xiao's attack? Give me some face and don't kill him. The Dark Tribe elder suddenly said loudly, All right, I'll give you some face. Ling Xiao originally wanted to get rid of Infatian as soon as possible. However, since the Dark Tribe elder had pleaded he would give him face. After all, if the Dark Tribe elder owed him a favor, it would be easier for him to survive in the Dark Tribe in the future. As for Infatian, he was just a piece of trash. If he was defeated, he would never be able to defeat him again. If this kid didn't know what was good for him, he would end up like Sha Hai and die. A terrifying sword aura shot out and exploded on the Shadow Witcher's body. The pitch-black shell that enveloped Infatian suddenly shattered like glass and fell piece by piece. Infatian's body was revealed, still in shock. Ling Xiao stepped on Infatian's body and placed the sword in his hand against his neck. He said coldly, If it wasn't for the Dark Tribe elder's plea, I would have killed you. Now admit defeat. Since it was a duel, and he didn't want to kill his opponent must admit defeat. Otherwise, this battle wouldn't end. No, just kill me. I won't admit defeat. And Infatian howled. He felt that Ling Xiao wouldn't dare to kill him. That was why he was so uncooperative. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Ling Xiao sneered. Without another word, he slammed his palm onto Infatian's body. The terrifying sword qi penetrated the palm wind and entered Infatian's body. It began to madly destroy Infatian's internal organs and body tissues. And Fei Tian immediately started bleeding from his 7 orifices. No, to be exact, his entire body was bleeding nonstop, seeping out from his capillaries. Screams that sounded like pigs being slaughtered rose and fell one after another in this silent tunnel. Hearing this, many people frowned. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Stop torturing me. And Fei Yan was scared. He was really frightened by Ling Xiao. The guy in front of him was simply a demon, a terrifying demon. This wasn't human at all. He absolutely believed that if he didn't admit defeat, he would definitely end up in a miserable state. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. If you had just admitted defeat, you wouldn't have had to suffer like this. Ling Xiao looked at Fei Tian, who was in a daze because of excessive fear, and stood up with a sneer. Then he looked at the dark tribe elder. Don't worry, elder. I didn't kill him. It's just that this kid needs to be taught a lesson, so I'll let him suffer a little. He stood there, almost spotless, as if he had never fought before. Behind him, Fei Tian was twitching uncontrollably. Seeing this horrifying scene, no one could react. No matter how much they thought, they would never have thought that such a situation would happen. Ling Xiao's arrogance, and insufferably arrogance were extremely annoying. However, this young man had the right to be arrogant. I'm going to kill you, and Yexing suddenly roared. His body flashed, and he pounced on Ling Xiao. He was furious that his son had been beaten to such a state. He did not care about the Bullsh *T rules. He wanted to kill Ling Xiao as soon as possible. However, before he could take 2 steps forward, he was kicked out by Yexing. What are you trying to do, elder? And Fei Tian's every move was ruthless. He wanted to kill Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao did not kill him, which is already extremely benevolent. You don't know what's good for you. Yexing would not let anyone hurt Ling Xiao. Damn it! And Yexing roared at the sky, but there was nothing he could do. The elder sighed, walked to Fei Tian's side, and began to treat his injuries. Young man, you're too ruthless. After touching Fei Tian's body, the elder realized how serious his injuries were. He was afraid that he would not be able to continue on the path of martial arts in the future. Even if he survived, he would only be an ordinary person. Elder, you're exaggerating. He wanted to kill me, but I didn't kill him. This is already benevolent. Elder, do you want me to be a saint? Ling Xiao looked at the elder and said calmly. He had already given this old man face. He hoped that this old man would not go too far. Forget it. The elder of the dark tribe sighed. He naturally understood that Ling Xiao's words made sense. However, so what if it made sense? Not everyone could be reasonable. At this time, Dark Gold, Dark World, and even Dark Knight Wuzuan looked at Ling Xiao with hostility. Dark Flower and Yexing were even more so. However, Yexing and No Light in the Night were very satisfied with Ling Xiao's achievements. Elder, this shadow black gourd should be mine for the time being, right? Ling Xiao did not care about Fei Tian's life or death, nor did he care about what others thought of him. What he wanted now was the shadow black gourd. Although he did not know what he could learn from the shadow black gourd, he believed that it would definitely be an important upgrade for him in the Black Tortoise mainland. Shut up. You're just an outer tribe disciple. What right do you have to learn the shadow martial arts? You're not worthy at all. Moreover, you have no feelings for the dark tribe. Once you learn the shadow martial arts and betray us, the dark tribe will suffer a great loss. Clan elder, you must reconsider. And Yexing knew that with Yexing around, he could not kill Ling Xiao. However, he could not let Ling Xiao get the shadow martial arts. Elder, I think so too. Dark Flower took the opportunity to say, Elder, think twice. Ling Xiao is not loyal to the dark tribe. Otherwise, why would he not recognize Dark Light as his adoptive father? And Yexing said again, he had caught Ling Xiao's weakness. The other experts of the dark tribe also expressed their agreement with Yexing and Yexing. In the dark tribe, more than half of the elders and grand elders did not want Ling Xiao to get the shadow martial arts. Ling Xiao looked at this scene coldly, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 2472. What's there to discuss? You changed the rules, and still can't stop my disciple from obtaining the right to study the shadow black gourd. What else is there to discuss? Yi Wuxing snorted coldly. Ling Xiao, go and take the shadow black gourd. I'd like to see who dares to stop you. The rules set by the old ancestor state that as long as someone can stand out in this competition, they can obtain the right to study the gourd for 20 days. If you can make the shadow black gourd recognize you as its master, you can directly obtain this treasure and become the successor to the dark race's patriarch. Anyone who dares to violate this rule will be punished by the old ancestor. I don't think anyone here dares to do that, right? As soon as he said this, everyone shut up, because the sacrificial altar was where the souls of the dark race's ancestors resided. If anyone did not follow the rules set by the old ancestor, there was a high chance they would be punished. One had to know that in the dark race, the old ancestor's prestige was not inferior to the 7 rulers of the mystic world. No one dared to violate this rule. They might not be afraid of Yi Wuxing, but they could not be afraid of the old ancestor's punishment. Haha, Wuxing, I think you've misunderstood. The dark race patriarch was worthy of being called a wily old fox. At this time he smiled and said, "You should understand their feelings. After all, Fei Tian was beaten to such a state, and none of the other children who participated in the competition with them survived. Some anger can be forgiven. But don't worry, this old master will uphold justice. The dark race is not the kind of race that can't bear to see their disciples grow stronger. Since Ling Xiao has won this competition, the shadow black gourd naturally belongs to him." Hearing this, Ling Xiao smiled slightly and cupped his fist to the old man. "Many thanks for upholding justice, patriarch." In fact, he knew in his heart that this old man was not willing to lend him the shadow black gourd to study. But because of the old ancestors' rules, there was no other way. If he did not allow Ling Xiao to study the shadow black gourd today, not only would it disappoint the other disciples, but it would also incur the old ancestors' punishment. This was not something this old man could bear. However, since the other party had said these words of justice, Yang Kai naturally had to thank him. It didn't matter if he didn't mean it. "Patriarch, you have to think this through. Once this brat learns the shadow black gourd to study, he'll become a great threat to the dark race." Nightwalker cried out, "Shut up! This old man thought that you had always been cautious with your words and actions, but your performance today has really disappointed this old man. If you still want to continue holding the position of patriarch, you better keep your mouth shut. This is not a time for discussion. Rules are rules. Otherwise, who will believe the dark race twos, the dark ancestors? Wuxing to it. There was nothing he could do about it. His cultivation wasn't as high as Dark Night Formless, nor was it as high as the clan elders. Although he was the clan elder, his words didn't carry much weight. To you. He, to the Yi. Ling Xiao had crippled his son. No matter what, he had to kill Ling Xiao. Since he couldn't stop Ling Xiao from obtaining the shadow black gourd, he might as well kill Ling Xiao. Maybe he could even take the shadow black gourd for himself. With that thought, he shut his mouth and said nothing more. Since Wuxing was silent, the others naturally fell silent as well. "Very well. I declare the winner of the shadow black gourd contest to be Ling Xiao. According to the rules set by the forefather, he can hold onto the shadow black gourd for 20 days to study the shadow black gourd. Regardless of whether he succeeds or not, the gourd will automatically fly back to the altar after 20 days. The dark ancestor glanced at Ling Xiao. The master of the shadow black gourd was the first forefather of the dark race. He used this treasure to establish the dark race's position on 8 Immortals Mountain. Since then, no one has been able to become the shadow black gourd's master, because the first forefather's soul has become the tool spirit of the shadow black gourd. He truly controls this treasure. Kneel in front of the shadow black gourd and pay your respects. The forefather will grant you a strand of telekinesis in your body. On the one hand, this telekinesis can make the shadow black gourd yours for 20 days. On the other hand, it can prevent others from fighting over it. Go. I see that he's still monitoring me. Ling Xiao thought to himself. He even suspected that this so-called strand of telekinesis would never leave after entering his body. It would lurk in his body forever. If one day he really wanted to take the shadow black gourd, this strand of telekinesis would come out and cause trouble. This suspicion wasn't without reason. Because Ling Xiao's Tai Chi eye vaguely discovered that there was a strand of telekinesis in the bodies of the dark race, Hai Wuzuan and the Forefather. Even Hai Wuzuan and No Light in the Night had it in their bodies. It could be said that anyone who had obtained the right to use the shadow black gourd had it. What was the first Forefather of the dark race trying to do? Did he want to turn everyone into his puppets? How terrifying! However, it might be terrifying to others, but to Ling Xiao, a strand of telekinesis was nothing. Back then, he had even refined a strand of the King of Sovereigns' divine consciousness. The strength of the tyrant martial soul was definitely not something that ordinary people could understand. In front of a human king, what was a King of Sovereigns? He sneered. He didn't know what the first Forefather of the dark race was planning. But today he had to get the shadow black gourd. With the shadow sword deity painting, he might be able to comprehend something powerful. He walked forward and knelt in front of the altar. Then a strand of white light flew out of the shadow black gourd and entered his body. Seeing this, everyone knew that the fact that Ling Xiao had obtained the right to comprehend the shadow black gourd couldn't be changed. This was something that some people couldn't accept. They were jealous, unwilling, and even resentful. But so what? Ling Xiao often did things that made people hate him and want to kill him, but they couldn't do anything about it. Ling Xiao, you can go and get the shadow black gourd now. But I have to remind you of something. The shadow black gourd is something that my forefather left behind. You don't have the dark race's bloodline, so it will be very difficult for you to comprehend the shadow martial arts. But you only have 20 days. If you can't comprehend it, you can only give up. Do you understand? Hearing these words, Ling Xiao suddenly understood why this old fellow would go against everyone's wishes and bestow this dark shadow black gourd to him. Of course, the Forefather was afraid of the Forefather's rules and his reputation being tarnished. Chapter 2473. What the Dark Tribe Elder was trying to do to Ling Xiao was an overt scheme. You knew it, but it was difficult to resolve. It was even more frustrating than a scheme. However, Ling Xiao smiled disdainfully. Elder, you worry too much. When the first Dark Tribe ancestor obtained the gourd, he got it from someone else. He was able to control it. Of course I can control it too. How arrogant. How dare you compare yourself to our first Dark Tribe ancestor? Dark Flower said angrily. It's not about whether I'm worthy or not. It's about whether he's worthy or not. Of course, Ling Xiao didn't say this out loud. After all, he was about to get the gourd, and there was no point in making a fuss. However, in his opinion, the first Dark Tribe ancestor was only an expert from a few hundred years ago. His cultivation base was probably only in the life-seizing stage, not even in the rebirth stage. He didn't say anything. Instead, he walked straight towards the gourd. Presumably, the Dark Tribe Elder wasn't just plotting against him. He was also plotting against him. Even if he wanted to take the gourd, it wouldn't be easy. He could clearly sense the sneer in the Dark Tribe Elder's eyes. However, he didn't think too much about it. There was no point in thinking too much. In any case, he would deal with whatever came his way. He didn't care anymore. The moment he approached the dark shadow black gourd, Ling Xiao could clearly feel that the dark sword deity painting in his storage ring had become active. It was as if two lovers who hadn't seen each other in a long time had finally met. They were both happy and excited. It seemed that the Yuan Venerate was right. The dark sword deity diagram and the dark shadow gourd were originally a set of treasures. However, for some reason, they had been forcibly separated. 20 days? That's really too short. I have to take the dark shadow gourd for myself. Ling Xiao made up his mind. According to the rules of the Dark Tribe, as long as he could make the dark shadow gourd recognize him as its master, he could take the treasure. Although he didn't know how to make it recognize him as its master, he was confident that he could do it. Ever since he had obtained the tyrant martial soul, he had never found anything difficult to do. He stood there and hesitated for a moment. Then he reached out and grabbed the black gourd that was about a foot tall. The moment he touched the shadow black gourd, a terrified roar came from the gourd. Even the psychokinesis in his body was gone. What was going on? Ling Xiao was somewhat bewildered. If that psychokinesis disappeared, would he still be able to take away the shadow black gourd? This sudden turn of events was truly beyond his expectations. He was quite surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. He continued to grab the gourd and put it into his storage ring. The shadow black gourd was obviously resisting. The weapon spirit was none other than the first ancestor of the Dark Ones. At this moment, it was incomparably terrified and furious. It wanted to escape from Ling Xiao's hands. However, the terrifying aura of the tyrannical martial spirit that was released from Ling Xiao's body was so oppressive that the tool spirit could not breathe. You still want to resist? Do you believe that I will completely obliterate you? Ling Xiao was confident that the tool spirit of the shadow black gourd was no match for the tyrannical martial spirit. As long as he had enough time, he would definitely be able to take the shadow black gourd for himself. Damn it! Who are you? A voice came from Ling Xiao's mind. I am just me, a martial artist of the mystic world. Ling Xiao replied with his soul power. No, you are not. What is your relationship with the human king? Are you the reincarnation of the human king? The tool spirit still roared. So much nonsense. According to the rules you set, I have the right to use and comprehend the shadow black gourd for 20 days. Obediently enter my storage ring. Don't force me to use force. Ling Xiao felt that, in terms of soul power, he was actually crushing this weapon spirit. Of course, he didn't want to destroy the tool spirit, because once it was destroyed, the treasure would also be destroyed. After all, the tool spirit and the treasure had been together for too long. They had already successfully merged into one. No, the shadow black gourd suddenly spewed out a powerful force in an attempt to overturn Ling Xiao. This scene was witnessed by all the onlookers. The dark tribe elder's lips curled into a cold smile. He had already guessed that this would happen. Without the dark tribe's bloodline, trying to take the shadow black gourd by force would result in this result. In fact, there should have been a process in between. As the elder, he should have used his own blood to leave a blood mark on Ling Xiao's forehead. This way, the shadow black gourd would not reject him, but he didn't do that. He wanted to make Ling Xiao suffer a little so that he would voluntarily give up the shadow black gourd. In that case, he couldn't be blamed. After all, he had already done the right thing. This person was not a saint. How could he be heartless? He was a dark tribe member and in Fei Tian's grandfather. It was impossible for him not to be angry when he saw his grandson being beaten up like that. However, he was more tolerant and sinister than a Nightwalker. See, I've already said that Ling Xiao doesn't have the right to possess the shadow black gourd. Even the ancestors won't acknowledge him. Hidden Flower said excitedly. At this time, even Dark Night Formless and No Light in the Night were sweating for Ling Xiao. However, at this moment, the dark sword deity painting in Ling Xiao's storage ring changed. A dark, long sword with strange black tiger patterns engraved on it flew out of the storage ring. The sword stabbed into the ball of energy. Then, everyone saw a ferocious black tiger open its huge mouth in the void and swallow the ball of energy. Then the black, long sword disappeared. The ball of energy also disappeared. Ling Xiao was not affected at all. He easily picked up the shadow black gourd and put it in his storage ring. What's going on? What's with the sword just now? How can he pick up the shadow black gourd? This scene made the dark tribe elder, who thought he had everything under control, panic. He could only hope that Ling Xiao could not comprehend anything from the shadow black gourd. This strange fellow is really not easy to control. Ha ha ha. I've disappointed you, Elder Hidden Flower. It seems that the ancestors were just joking with Ling Xiao. They don't plan to deal with him. No Light in the Night laughed and mocked Hidden Flower. So what if he has it? He can't comprehend anything from it. You have to know that in their generation, only two people can truly comprehend it. One is Dark Night Formless, and the other is in Ming. And in the previous generation, there was only Dark Night Formless. Moreover, these three people all have the Dark Tribe's bloodline. What about Ling Xiao? He has nothing. What right does he have? Hidden Flower snorted, still unconvinced. Chapter 2474. It didn't matter what other people said or saw. Ling Xiao had already put away the dark shadow black gourd. Today's battle could be considered to be completely over. What he needed to do next was to return to his residence and study the secrets of the gourd and the dark sword deity diagram. Congratulations, Ling Xiao. Yi Night Formless walked in front of Ling Xiao and patted Ling Xiao's shoulder heavily. Some people say that even if you obtain the gourd, it's meaningless, because you don't have the bloodline of the Dark Clan. You're just an outsider. But in my opinion, you've always been able to create miracles. This time won't be an exception, right? Of course not. Those people are secretly cursing and mocking me now. In 20 days, I'll let them know how stupid their judgment was. Schemes and conspiracies, they're all farts. Ling Xiao's voice was very loud. He said it on purpose for those who were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. He wanted them to understand. Ling Xiao wasn't an idiot, nor was he an idiot. What he wanted to do would definitely succeed. In your dreams, Hidden Flower sneered and turned to leave. She didn't want to see Ling Xiao's smug face again. Ling Xiao and Yi Night Formless left the altar and returned to the Dark Clan's main hall. Qing Wanhua and Lin Yang were waiting there. Although they didn't see the whole process, they only heard the results. They were overjoyed at Ling Xiao's success. In Ling Xiao's residence, after a round of celebration, only Ling Xiao was left in the room. Everyone knew that he only had 20 days to study the gourd secrets, so they didn't want to disturb him. They only wanted him to cultivate in peace. Yi Night Formless stayed in the courtyard near Ling Xiao's room to protect Ling Xiao, because he knew that in these 20 days, there would definitely be some uninvited guests who would come to cause trouble. Ling Xiao couldn't be distracted, so he had to do more things. 20 days? I don't need that long. I should be able to completely control the dark shadow black gourd in 10 days at most. According to Sire Shui, as long as he possessed any treasure from the 8 great families, he would be able to head to the Sand Race's sea region where Ling Yan was imprisoned. It would be best if they could rescue Ling Yan as soon as possible. However, even if he couldn't succeed, he had to at least meet Ling Yan while he was in possession of the dark shadow gourd. The last time I went to the 5th floor of the ghost prison, I already spied on some of the mysteries of the array formations there. This time, as long as there's a chance, we can rescue Ling Yan. For Ling Xiao, saving Ling Yan was a huge weight off his shoulders. What he needed to do next was to learn all the secret techniques of the 8 Immortals Mountain, and then use this place as a springboard to go to a more suitable place for him to become stronger. Taking a deep breath, Ling Xiao stopped thinking about it. He had to take things one step at a time. He could sense that the Sin Extermination Stone he had obtained after the battle for the Dark Shadow Black Gourd was actually an excellent supplement for his cultivation. Perhaps he really wasn't far from breaking through to the first transition, 4th level of hell. The stronger one was the higher one's status would be in the 8 Immortals Mountain. He was very clear about his current situation. Although it seemed safe, it was actually very dangerous. Although Yi Wuxing was strong, he was only one person. If his enemies came at the same time and he wasn't strong enough, even Yi Wuxing would be killed. Master, you should have already deciphered the secret of the Dark Sword Immortal diagram, right? Ling Xiao's body shook and an illusory figure floated out. It was the Yuan Venerate. Relying on the soul gem Ling Xiao had given him, the Yuan Venerate was now able to move freely within a certain range. Although he was only a spiritual body, he wouldn't be so easily blown away by the astral winds. Of course, the Dark Sword Immortal diagram, or rather, the Dark Sword Immortal diagram, is actually the key to opening the Dark Shadow Black Gourd. The Yuan Venerate explained. You saw that black sword previously, right? That was condensed by the power of the dark sword immortal diagram. What you have to do now is to condense this black sword into a real entity. When that happens, you won't just possess a true divine weapon, the dark immortal sword. You will also be able to use this sword to slay the weapon spirit of the dark shadow black gourd without causing the gourd to shatter. Kill the weapon spirit of the dark shadow black gourd? Isn't that a little too inhumane? I don't think he has any enmity with me, Ling Xiao said with a frown. If you don't want to kill him, then make him submit and become your servant. He will listen to all your orders. You can also do this by relying on the dark immortal sword and the sky tyrant martial soul. It won't be difficult, the Yuan Venerate said. All right then, I'll try to control him first. If he doesn't know what's good for him, I'll destroy him. Ling Xiao nodded. Then he began to modify and condense the dark sword immortal diagram. Actually, even the first-generation ancestor of the Dark Tribe hadn't been able to obtain the true Dark Shadow martial arts. This was because the only way to fully open the Dark Shadow Black Gourd and fully comprehend the Dark Shadow martial arts was to obtain the key. However, only Ling Xiao had obtained the Dark Sword Immortal Diagram. Furthermore, it was precisely because the Yuan Venerate was a powerful array formation master that he was able to decipher its mysteries. Otherwise, no one would use these two items, even if they had obtained them. Perhaps this was the so-called accumulation of knowledge. Although it seemed useless, it could be of great use during critical moments. The condensation of the Dark Sword Immortal Diagram became very easy with the guidance of the Yuan Venerate. In just one day, Ling Xiao had condensed the Dark Sword Immortal Diagram into a black sword about a meter long. Holding it in one hand, the weight was very suitable and it emitted a sinister glow. Dark Immortal Sword, Divine Grade Spirit Weapon. It contains the beast spirit of the black-striped flying tiger. It can be used for direct combat and can also allow beast warriors to undergo beast spirit transformation. Ling Xiao immediately sensed this information the moment the black sword took shape. The black-striped flying tiger beast spirit was a 1-star Yin-Yang 6th level hell beast spirit. It was much stronger than the steel-armored ox demon, the tyrant blood demon dragon, and the black wolf general. Although it wasn't suitable for Ling Xiao at the moment, given Ling Xiao's cultivation speed, he would be able to grasp it perfectly very soon. Good stuff! Ling Xiao couldn't help but sigh. Then he embedded the black-striped flying tiger beast spirit into the tiger god position of the 12 beast gods. Given his current cultivation base, he still couldn't fully utilize the might of this beast spirit. However, its combat strength was already much stronger than the other 3 beast spirits. The black-striped flying tiger naturally had its own innate skill. Its name was Tiger Roar. As its name suggested, this was a very special sound effect. It was the same type of innate skill as the Tyrant Blood Demon Dragon's Demonic Dragon Blood Curse. However, the Demonic Dragon Blood Curse affected the enemy's blood essence. The Tiger Roar relied on its terrifying roar to affect martialists. If it was light, the enemy would temporarily lose their sense of hearing, tremble, and be unable to control themselves. If it was heavy, they would bleed to death from all orifices. It could be said that, if used well, it could be of great use at critical moments. Chapter 2475. After deactivating his martial soul transformation, Ling Xiao turned his attention to the Shadow Black Gourd. Although the Black Immortal Sword was something he really wanted, he was also very interested in the Shadow martial arts within the Shadow Black Gourd. How do I open the Shadow Black Gourd? Ling Xiao asked the Yuan Venerate. The Shadow Black Gourd is a special space. As long as you touch it with the Black Immortal Sword, you will be able to open it. However, you have to be careful. I believe that the spirit of the Dark Tribe ancestor is also inside. Maybe you don't want his life, but he might want yours. The Yuan Venerate reminded him. I understand. However, how can I obtain the Shadow Black Gourd if I can't subdue him? He is just an artifact spirit without a body. I would be too cowardly if I was afraid of him. Ling Xiao smiled, and then he touched the umbra black gourd with his sword. In an instant, a strange vortex appeared on the shadow black gourd. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment before jumping in. Since he had already decided to do something, he wouldn't waver. This was an empty world. This world was filled with darkness, and there was no light at all. Suddenly, a bright spot appeared in the darkness. It was actually a person in a long robe, holding a sword in his right hand and the shadow black gourd in his left. He glared at Ling Xiao with hatred and roared, "Get out, or you won't be able to leave! Are you the dark tribe ancestor? The artifact, spirit of the shadow black gourd?" Ling Xiao naturally couldn't leave. He had entered this space to obtain the shadow martial arts. How could he leave? "I told you to get out." The person didn't answer. Instead, he roared and attacked with his sword. Ling Xiao sneered as the tyrant martial soul appeared behind him. In the vast universe, it released an earth-shattering power. The black immortal sword merged with the tyrant martial soul and became extremely huge. A terrifying aura locked onto the person, making him unable to move. "If you don't know how to speak properly, then I'll have to use force. You only have two choices now. One is to be loyal to me. The other is to leave this umbra black gourd or die." Ling Xiao's voice was cold and domineering. He wanted to obtain the shadow black gourd, so there were some things that could not be discussed. "No, you can't do this to me. You can't. I'm your ancestor." The man trembled with fear. The combined might of the sky tyrant martial soul and the black immortal sword made him unable to resist at all. Right now, he only wanted to beg for mercy. He only wanted to live. "Grandmaster, I remember that when I wanted to take away the umbra black gourd, you almost killed me. Fortunately, this black immortal sword automatically protected its master. Otherwise, I would really be finished." Ling Xiao sneered and said, "Now you are telling me that you are my ancestor and telling me not to treat you like this. What a joke. I have already given you a way out. I must obtain this dark shadow black gourd. You can scram now. If you don't, only death awaits you." I'll scram. As the first-generation ancestor of the dark race, how could this artifact, spirit, tolerate being controlled by Ling Xiao? However, he also knew that he simply couldn't match up to Ling Xiao with just this soul. Therefore, his only choice was to leave. "Ling Xiao, you are raising a tiger and inviting calamity. He won't be willing to let you take over his nest." The Yuan Venerate reminded him. "I know, but I still have to find a reason to destroy him. After all, he has never harmed me before. His sudden attack on me during the battle was also out of instinct. If he still intends to deal with me after I let him go, don't worry. I won't be merciful." Ling Xiao said faintly, "He might not have been weak in the past, but he doesn't even have a body now. If he wants to possess someone, the martialists he can choose from in the entire 8 Immortal Mountain are limited. In short, Master, don't worry. He won't be able to escape from my grasp, and he won't be able to create any big waves. Actually, Master, you should know that the main reason I let him go was because I didn't want to expend too much energy to destroy him. Even I have to admit that this artifact spirit is very powerful. After this battle, I'm afraid I will have to rest for more than 10 days or even dozens of days to recover. When that happens, will I still have the opportunity to comprehend martial arts? Will I still have the opportunity to save Ling Yan?" The last was Ling Xiao's real reason. Letting the artifact spirit go would be more beneficial to him than keeping him. Right now, he could be considered to be using the tiger's skin to intimidate others, and it was more like he was putting on airs. However, the artifact spirit was also a coward and had actually been frightened. Otherwise, he might not have lost if he had fought to the death. "You are indeed shrewd, kid. Hurry up and control this shadow black gourd and learn the shadow martial arts." The Yuan Venerate chuckled. "You are simply the most cunning monkey I've ever seen." Ling Xiao chuckled and began to concentrate on comprehending the shadow martial arts. The moment he calmed down, his surroundings changed abruptly. Pitch-black figures appeared one after another. These silhouettes were cultivating in various postures, displaying different martial skills. I succeeded just like that? Ling Xiao felt that it was a little unbelievable. He had actually managed to comprehend something that others couldn't even comprehend after 20 days in less than 10 minutes. It felt a little like a dream. Don't doubt it. You have the black immortal sword in your hand, and you even chased away that stingy artifact spirit. Therefore, you are now the master of the Shadow Black Gourd. All the martial arts inside will be presented to you. The Yuan Venerate laughed. Yes, that makes sense. However, Master, I heard from the Mountain Lord that he comprehended the shadow martial arts the most. Even so, he had only comprehended 4 moves. The first 2 moves are top-grade, high-grade Jade martial arts. The 3rd and 4th moves are low-grade, top-grade Jade martial arts. However, how can the one I comprehended have 6 moves? The first 2 moves are the same. They are top-grade, high-grade Jade martial arts. The 3rd move is low-grade, top-grade Jade martial arts. The 4th move is ordinary. The 5th move is good. And the 6th move is outstanding. Furthermore, there is a supplementary cultivation method that can increase the quality of my internal energy. This will make my already tyrannical internal energy even more terrifying. That's normal. As I said before, no one in the Dark Tribe has truly cultivated the shadow martial arts completely. What you have is the most complete. The Yuan Venerate laughed. Don't panic. Since you have obtained it, start cultivating. What's there to panic about? I'm more than happy. Although the remaining top-grade Jade martial arts are still difficult for me to cultivate with my current cultivation base, it won't be long. I will first master the first 2 moves. They are much more powerful than the Eastern Purple Chi Sword. Ling Xiao's face was full of confidence and pride. Chapter 2476. The martial techniques of the shadow martial arts were not specific to a specific weapon. They were universal. Every martial artist could use them according to their own style. Then, they could evolve them into the most suitable move. For example, Ling Xiao was good at using the sword. Then he could comprehend this move as a sword move. The first and second moves were Sword Cry Een Mountain and Sword Split the Underworld. As the top high-tier Jade grade sword skills, these 2 moves would naturally be more powerful than the 2 moves of the Eastern Purple Chi Sword. With Ling Xiao's current cultivation, if he used the Black Immortal Sword and these 2 moves, he could even defeat a martial artist in the 4th level of the Yin Yang realm. Moreover, he was about to break through. Once he broke through, he would be invincible in the 4th level of the Yin Yang realm. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao felt that his future was limitless and his confidence increased. Next, he began to cultivate the first 2 moves. Even if it was only at the initial level, he could still use them. Another day passed, and Ling Xiao cultivated Sword Cry Een Mountain to the proficient level and Sword Rends the Underworld to the small success level. He tried to use the Black Immortal Sword, an immortal grade spiritual weapon, to perform these 2 moves. The difference in power was huge. From the looks of it, the stronger the weapon, the stronger the amplification of the moves. Fortunately, the Black Immortal Sword had already recognized him as its master. It could become his trump card again. Now he had completely mastered the shadow martial arts. However, he could not return the Shadow Black Gourd. He still needed it to go to the 5th level of the Ghost Prison to see Ling Yan. Whether or not he could save Ling Yan was another matter. He would not force it. After all, Ling Yan had been imprisoned there for a long time. Since the people of the 8th Immortals Mountain did not kill him, it meant that Ling Yan was still useful. If possible, he would naturally choose to save him when he was more confident and safer. If I want to be more confident, I have to be stronger and continue to cultivate. Although he was very anxious, Ling Xiao still calmed down and continued to cultivate. He had 20 days to use the gourd, so the Dark Ones wouldn't know that it had already recognized him as its master. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to think that he could become the leader of the Dark Race just because the gourd recognized him as its master. If he was really that stupid, he probably wouldn't be far from death. While controlling the dark shadow Black Gourd, he could raise his strength to a level that others would not dare to provoke. This was the true meaning of safety. Another 8 days passed. Exactly 10 days. Ling Xiao had already cultivated the Een Mountain's sword chime to the transformative state. Sword Rend the underworld had been cultivated to the Great Circle. Not only that, during the battle with the Gemini martial spirits, his east-rising purple chi sword style had reached the transcendent stage. Since then, even though his cultivation level had not broken through, his battle prowess had increased by a large margin. Coupled with the Black Immortal Sword, he believed that he would be able to put up a fight even if he were to face a cultivator at the late stage of the 4th level of Hell. It's about time. It'll be too slow for me to improve any further. Next, it's time to go see Ling Yan. It's been more than 2 months since we parted at Yuhua Town. I really don't know how Ling Yan has been tortured by those bastards from the 8 Immortal Mountain. Ling Xiao opened his eyes and sighed. He put away the Black Immortal Sword and walked out of the room. Yi Formless was sitting outside the courtyard. At this moment, he looked extremely exhausted, and there were terrifying scars on his body. He was an extremely powerful cultivator. How could he be injured? Ling Xiao couldn't understand what had happened these days. Boss, there have been experts harassing you these days. It seems like they don't want you to focus on your cultivation. These experts are all at the 6th level of the 6th level of Hell. Their strength is on par with Senior Wuxian. They've repeatedly attacked you, and they've been taking turns to fight you. It's been very tiring for Senior Wuxian. We can only watch, but we can't do anything. It's been hard. Lin Yang also came out of the room and poured out his grievances to Ling Xiao. What's the point of telling him? He needs to cultivate now, not think about these messy things. Yi Wuxian said helplessly, Ling Xiao, don't think too much. They can't kill me. Who did it? Ling Xiao asked coldly. He wanted to know who he should find for revenge. The Sand Clan Elder, Sword Clan Elder, and young Master Lin Yu Tian. Yi Wuxian looked at Ling Xiao and answered, Now that you know, what can you do? There should be another Dark Clan Elder. Why don't you say it? Ling Xiao asked. Yes, there's him. But even so, you can't do anything. Yi Wuxian wanted to tell Ling Xiao that it was meaningless to think about revenge now. Not only would it be a waste of energy, but it might also cost him his life. However, Ling Xiao revealed a sinister smile. When they came to harass me, they should have known how terrifying my revenge would be. Mountain Lord, you're right. I'm not their match. But I can still deal with the geniuses of the Sand Clan, Sword Clan, and Dark Clan. When the old made a mistake, the young had to pay for it. This was the natural order of things. He didn't believe that those elders would dare to casually kill a few more geniuses. Looking at the terrifying wounds on Yi Wuxian's body, Ling Xiao really wanted to kill him. I'll be right back. Before Dark Knight Formless could call out to him, Ling Xiao had already disappeared into the path ahead. In the Sand Clan's courtyard, a figure was quietly lying in ambush outside. He was quietly waiting for his prey to arrive. His figure was almost one with the surroundings, and it was hard to see him. Soon, a few inner disciples of the Sand Clan walked out. They were going to cultivate outside. After all, there were many places in the 8 Immortal Mountain that had better cultivation effects than hiding in the courtyard. These people's cultivation wasn't bad. They were all geniuses that the Sand Clan had nurtured. However, a gust of wind blew past. These people only saw a black shadow flash past, and then their heads fell to the ground. Screams rang out in the Sand Clan's courtyard. As for the black shadow, it disappeared without a trace. It didn't stop at all. Then the same thing happened outside the Sword Clan and Dark Clan's courtyards. In the end, there were even casualties in the sect leader's residence. The 21 men of sacrifice that Lin Yuetian had carefully selected and nurtured were all killed. Not a single one was left alive. All of this happened in the span of half an hour. For a moment, the entire 8 Immortal Mountain was in a state of panic. Ling Xiao had already returned to his courtyard. He didn't have the ability to face the enemy head-on, but assassinations were easy for him. The Sand Clan, Sword Clan, Dark Clan, and young Master Lin Yutian couldn't guess who had done it. Although they had targeted the High Heaven courtyard, they couldn't guess. Although they had targeted Lin Yuetian's courtyard, it could have been an external enemy, such as the Heavenly Wind Group. After all, similar things had happened in the past few years. Of course, Ling Xiao was the most suspicious. However, they didn't have any evidence. Without evidence, they would be inciting internal strife in the 8 Immortal Mountain.